Open Class Doodles, episode 44, Tactical Doodles for Success. I could not shoot an episode on Trump Biden 24 presidential debate. We are in the presidential debate race right now. I mean, it's officially declared. It's gonna decide about the destiny, the future. And since our Monday episodes are always dedicated to the future, I thought this is a very interesting kind of topic to study. Also because over here, we try to give all these communicational leaders, all these performance leaders, all these acting leaders, we try to give them great tools and beautiful weapons, stuff to think about, and how our government leaders treat us in terms of how they communicate and speak to us when it's about kind of capturing ideas and transmitting value and kind of making a point about very interesting and very important topics, right? This is a beautiful matter and a beautiful subject to study, and I think today we will have a funny episode but also a very instructive episode at the same time. I think we can learn a lot from what just happened, and it was pretty much a media earthquake. So without any further ado, let's jump in today's Open Class Doodles 44. Thank you so much, everybody, for stopping by. We have already the chat warming up. We have Ravenwolf, the sinister Dobby Elf incarnation, coming to us. Mephisto X, hey. What's up, everybody? It's great having you guys. Beautiful. Also on Twitter, on Instagram. You guys, why don't you join us over here on YouTube? It's always, yes, depending on where you are. Good evening, good morning. I know we have UK people here, German people sometimes stopping by as well as Italian folks, and also guys from India sometimes tuning in. Rosita, of course, is also here. Speaking of, I think an Italian, a kind of, viewer here. So it's all over the place. Beautiful. And yes, this is also a topic that interests like on a global scale, but as long as we has, it's a lot, Mephisto X tells us that a lot has happened this 2024. Still a way to go through, though. Yeah, a lot. LOL for sure. There's a lot to go through this year. Spanish. Okay, I always thought you be Italian. I'm sorry, Rosita. I'm sorry. No pun intended. I mean, all Mediterranean folks in a way. English from England, Mephisto X is from England. Thank you so much. You good lad, you good sir. Hey lad, thanks for stopping by, lad. Oh, beautiful. Yes, it's great to have you folks here. And like always, Monday is kind of what's coming up. What are the trends? What's the dynamic that's gonna shape our existence, right? Well, what are the currents? What is the topic here? What is the world talking about? Always, of course, under the magnifying lens, under the critical, hilarious, funny, and also sometimes mythical magnifying lens of the COACHMC and how I kind of decipher and decode all this, and how I believe translated effectively it could help you, creators, artists, pirates, visionaries, in these times where everything is so loud. And remind yourself, it's election year, November. I mean, we have a couple of months ahead of us. They're gonna be crazy. They're gonna tune in with everything they got. It's gonna be an epic clash between the two colors, and let's see what's going to happen. But this definitely also is of major interest globally, and definitely also for our country, of course, right? It's definitely like how is the new course? What will it be? And how can we position ourselves? Because guys, we know politics, they have a polarized view, a very niche polarized view of the world. We could call them elites, we can whatever, but it's the matter of the fact they're sitting in some palaces and some big buildings, and therefore they can't really see what we do on a daily basis. So for the nature of things wants us divided, and so therefore, of course, there are two judgments about how certain things should be run, right? So therefore there will be an eternal dispute whether the best people are on top of our game or the worst people are on top of our game. It's always going to be a controversy, always a dispute, always an argument, right? It's never gonna stop. I was born in the UK, now living in USA, United States. Thank you so much for coming over, Dobby. You can hit Darby and me also. Sometimes you could see us on the Tangent King podcast that we're having every Saturday. I'm not sure I can always make it because unfortunately Saturday over here at the COACHMC studio is a pretty busy day, and so yeah, we sometimes are, but I'm always trying to make it, and we're definitely excited to have you guys on board and to kind of exchange. Yes. That's very funny. Half British, dark half, but all around YouTuber. That's also quite good. So guys, let's jump in today's interesting topic. And of course, the analysis I'm about to break down for you, because I thought, how can this be useful, but also funny and entertaining? I mean, it is, of course, and the setup itself is hilarious, right? Like we're watching 400 million people, and we're about to watch two individuals who have, you know, highly stratified personal interests and have their own agendas, kind of course, telling us that they are the best for the job because we should elect them. And so the whole process itself is a bit, and we will talk about if this makes sense in 2024, or if this should be changed, if there should be like some sort of, you know, an alternative to just two people standing against each other and calling themselves liars. Of course, the whole sense of the debate, you can leave it up for what it is, right? It's very volatile, right? It's of course you can grasp how people talk and, you know, what kind of they look like, but sure, they're gonna try to, you know, be at their best game and just deliver something convincing and entertaining, maybe even, and you know, trying to be like you know, to leave a good impression. Of course, that's their mission in a way. But when we're talking about on such high levels where so many interests of, you know, come together, where so many, you know, different opinions should be evaluated, where so many different voices need to be heard in order to kind of gain that access to that final pyramidal stage. You know, this is the pyramidion. These are the two on top of the pyramid that are talking to each other. And allegedly the media and everybody else is painting it as they were the respective representative of two fashions, of two different camps, right, of two different belief systems, blue and red, black and white, love against fear, all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So the whole context, of course, the whole setup professionally as an acting coach, as an actor, as a communication coach is it is interesting, and it's definitely entertaining. I don't find it highly effective the way it is proposed right now, but this is not the fact of the matter of tonight. Of course, it is interesting to study these highly trained, highly skilled communicators that are in the, you know, in the politics for, in Biden's case, I think 50 years, right? And Trump right now being also like a veteran to the politics game. So people who are used to stages, to performances, to public speaking, to events, to meetings, to congressional hearings and all that stuff, right? So supposedly we could, potentially we could learn from these, two representatives of these echelons, right? Of people that can talk to each other, of this echelon of potent, members of the government and ruling people of society and all that. So therefore, such an analysis always is well intended, because it's interesting how the minuscule details and the strategies that were proposed by, of course, their respective teams kind of play out. And so therefore, we will definitely assess what is the strategy of each representative. How are they playing out their respectfully their own strategies, their own tactics? What is it that they really talk about? And then we definitely going to analyze also a little bit more technically. And bear with me, I know some of these technical analysis, but it's important to understand that communicators have weapons, they have instruments, they have different ways and tools and skills, of course, that they can use and insert in any type of delivery in order to kind of come through, to have an impactful performance. And we're gonna break them down. What is it that makes a great communicator actually a great communicator? Right? What is it that he needs to do on a technical level? What are all these aspects? How can we train them? The strategic analysis, where you want to put your most important points. What is it that you want to discuss granularly, and what type of emotional fields do you want to tap in? All this stuff is super, super potent and highly interesting. Now, leave aside that, of course, we know from media backlash and everything that happened, what we're about to witness now on video, without any further ado, has its own kind of narrative already, but try to look at it as unfiltered as possible, right? And welcome, John Doe, Future Boy. Thank you so much for being here. And let's jump right into this.
We're live from Georgia, a key battleground state in the race for the White House. In just moments, the current U.S. president will debate the former U.S. president as their party's presumptive nominees, a first in American history. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
Okay, cool. Very good intro, very flowing, of course, through the buildings. We see those, these high rises, they stand for success and, for evolution, and of course also for power, right? They are obelisks, they stand for power. We have an illuminated top there, illuminated pyramidion, interesting. And it kind of, goes in and gives us the setup. And so it already kind of, enlarges and makes this whole thing epic, right? We're just flying right in. Very well done, beautiful. It should like stimulate that elevated kind of feeling, that ambience that something exciting is about to happen. So let's see if something exciting happens.
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their rematch for the nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates.
Interesting. I just want to jump in really quick. I just want to, what he said there with the movement, right? His gestures were very interesting. Just pay attention to how he opened that up. And he was, usually when you do this welcome moves, right? When you have posture moves like this as a like maybe a host, like in this case, right? What you want to do is, this is you're the placater, right? You are the peace bringer. You are the one who creates equilibrium and balance, right? The redeemer, right? In a way, it's a very holy, we're bringing people together. So you open your palms up, like what he did. And also, just to kind of, because we just stopped here really quick, the black and white, of course, of them is very interesting, how they put it in the color scheme, and that they're both having a very, very tension and very, kind of close type of demeanor. Look how they are trying to protect themselves, both, putting their hands up. He is very clinched and tries to do something with the pen. He has 2 cups there. So they're trying a little bit, they're already starting in some sort of defense position. And they seem to be also slightly tense and kind of trying to kind of keep their core protected. Very interesting.
Tonight, before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
Now look what they did here. This is a very subtle, I wouldn't say that this is maybe really intended. I'm not judging here because I'm gaining, something out of kind of standing for a candidate or not. I'm not into politics. The funny thing is, I'm actually just living here for over a year now. And so for me, this is, of course, a very interested, a very knowledgeable, if you want to call it so, allegedly, but just a very curious, observer in a way. I'm not really kind of, endorsing anything here or trying to be for someone. It's just really the professional analysis that drives me. And I kind of course, decode some other things that I know from advertising, that we know from entertainment, how certain, pictures, kind of placed in a certain way, stimulate your brain, you, the counterpart, you, the audience, yeah, you, the victim out there, right, in a way or another. So to kind of, to have some desired effects, right, that would be created, right? And this is, well, you can learn this at film school. It's not some sort of, a dark or secret conspiracy or something. This is just how the brain works, right? How you stimulate him, where you direct him, what kind of tendency you want to create in your counterpart's brain that is watching all this. So here I can tell right away, if you have someone on the left, the right place, and someone on the right place, that has a meaning, right? The left, of course, stands for, and this is funny, this is of course, we know there are no coincidences in the universe, but this is actually something out of my last masterclass that I just, I hang up always some stuff in the background, so you guys have always some better backgrounds, a bit more decent backgrounds with the, with the doodles that I create also for my clients, my masterclasses. And this masterclass, the cardboard that is there, this is actually all about the left and the right hemisphere and how we kind of interact with each other and where they are most functional, and how advertising can have its effect on whether the left or on the right side of the brain. And first you have to understand what is the left and what is the right side of the brain. And to break this down, to make this not too complicated, but I think it's truly important also for the sake of this debate, and also for you as to know this in terms of how to present, communicate in all other ways, and how you want to implement this type of knowledge. So the left side of the brain is considered to be the analytical side of the brain. It's the brain side that is that somehow kind of operates in the matter of understanding laws, numbers, reason, analysis, everything that is strategic, that it has, kind of complicated, complex, structured thinking, right? That is all, we say that is all part of the left side of the brain. It's religion, it's dogmas, it's laws, all that stuff. The attorney mind, right? The scientific mind is the left side. It's the left hemisphere, and it works best in the morning. So on the left side of the day, which is also truly funny. And the color associated to the left side is actually, it's actually blue. So it's funny that they associated left with red, because that maybe, I mean, it could be also completely coincidental that this is kind of intended to be some sort of cognitive dissonance right from the start, because then you can see that close to the left candidate's head, we see the number 2. And to the right, we see the other candidate who has 3 number 1s associated to him. So he's a 111, he's a AAA, right? This is what we try to communicate here. Coincidentally or not, we're saying that the right candidate is the AAA and the left candidate is just a B, it's just a number 2, it's just a second place, he's not the winner, right? This could be, one way of decoding this still right from the start. But again, this is not some sort of conspiracy theory. I'm not going out here because this is just the result of what you get taught at film school, how you want to do setups and how you want to create psychological influence on the audience. And read Propaganda by Edgar Ribet, for example. You find that stuff there as well. So it's not like a big secret. And of course, the right hemisphere is associated with magic, esoteric knowledge, with you could also say that the left side is the male aspect, the male hemisphere, and the right side is the female hemisphere. It's more the sensitive knowledge. Therefore, it's the good person, right? It's someone who is metrical, who embraces, who creates abundancy. So we are more inclined to believe subconsciously that the right side is a good side, right? That's why the left is called sinister, right? It's somehow evil. And remember when people kind of back in the days, they taught people to change if they were left-handed, to change to right-hand writing, because it would disturb the class and the rhythm. People who were left-handed were believed to be awkward and kind of outcasts, right? And we associate with the left always like a bad luck type of thing. And right is always order, is stableness, safety. It's right. Sometimes in its extreme way, of course, fascism, because it's total control, but it's actually something more benevolent subconsciously. And so therefore, this is how the opponents are placed here right away. Yes, it is in a way. Unfortunately, you're not innocent, coach. You know what's going on with the election. Well, I mean, I'm not really sure. I know. I mean, we can know. We have so much to speculate. We have so many things that come into account. It's crazy. The more you know, the less you know. The more you know about a permit, the less you know about the permit. The more doors you open, the more questions you will have. And so I don't think we will have a definite answer to who is how pulling the strings. We can have maybe like a very good, maybe even educated and pretty accurate assumption about who what is pulling definitely and running the show. But hey, in the end, we don't really know. And so this is also part of the mysteries, like how does whole planet functions, but not now. I mean, since ever, right? This whole combustion and how we got here is truly fascinating. And this is why we also have a show called Three Sages in a Time Machine every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's me, the Welshworth wizard, Ryan Roger Ethe, and the slightly drunk and alcoholic fire-breathing Dragon Slayer commentaries, searching for the mystery in our history. So don't miss it. Yes, I'm always fascinated about this stuff as well. So let's jump into the debate.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will
Bada boom,
be turned
bada
on,
bum.
and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Folks, how are you? Great to be here. Thank you.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
So, mind you guys, as far as my knowledge goes, it really looks like Biden had a couple of days to prepare this. It looks like more than even 7 days. People were searching for him actually in Washington D.C. and everybody was told, "Hey, he's at Camp David, kind of preparing for this campaign, for this presidential debate." And it seems like that Donald Trump didn't really go into any type of. I mean, of course, I think that he was coached at some level, or he just warmed up, or something like that. And it's interesting how both walked in. From a professional standpoint, you want to make sure that as a person that speaks first, right? When you kind of leave your voice, that the very first time it's clear what you're saying, right? So the fact that he kind of introduced himself during this walk, I'm talking about Biden because Trump didn't say anything. And it wasn't really clear what he was saying, and it looked like, there was the music running. So you want to make sure that as a presenter that you know exactly how, when you have an intro, when you go on stage, make sure that the people maybe on, that there is like 30 seconds delay. Usually in the studio, they will tell you like your mic is now on and you can go now, or there is like a little jiggle before that. So make sure to kind of respect that. Otherwise you wind up doing something like him, like Joe right now, that you walk on stage, that the president walks on stage and says something while the music is running, and so he's not really qualifiably, it's not really clear what he's saying, and then he says something again when he's at the podium and the music is still running, so it's not really a good start, right? You better say nothing like Trump did, right? He probably knew, hey, there's music running, I'm not going to say anything, right? He just walked firmly in. Just by the walk, he seemed a bit more secure and a bit more stable, that's for sure. Yeah. No, I was just checking your comments. Beautiful stuff. And the fact that they've not even, They didn't shake hands. They didn't meet each other. Now, why is that? Why don't they exchange? Like even the most, furious, the most, hot-tempered athletes, right? Before they actually start with their quest of winning, right? Before they meet each other on the pitch, they say hello to each other. They look into each other's eyes. It's like, hey, a warrior fights against a warrior, and he acknowledges the other warrior. Here, they don't even shake hands. That's a bit weird. So Future Boy says, no, we got that right. In the 2020s, leftists are unhinged. Regarding to what? Oh yeah, now I think I know what you mean, Future Boy. You mean with the latest election? Because it sounds really crazy to me that 81 million people voted for this guy. I don't know why. I look at him and he's just not convincing from a communicational standpoint. Ravenwolf said probably security protocols. Either way, it was a break in tradition. Yes.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm.
Okay. Just really quick. Now, I can see a strategy here, right? And I don't think that's because out of nervosity or anything. I think that's a clear strategy. So what they did probably during this week workout that they had at Camp David to prepare President Biden for this presidential debate, what they probably did is to give him some sort of a strategy how to start the sentences, or to have different sections even maybe of the debate where you kind of switch the emotional mood a little bit. So here, right from the start, the one thing that you can acknowledge is, so he was given an answer, and he was given a question, and Biden started immediately with the answer. Like he kind of, it was very energetic and blasting forward and really ramming, juggernauting himself into the sentence. And the second thing that he said, that somehow Trump is responsible for some for the prices, for the market that was plummeting. So he was addressing guilt on the right, and he was storming forward with the sentence. Now, this is not a bad strategy at all if you have to demonstrate authority and you want to kind of put up a power frame. There are certain frames, right, in debates that work: authority frames, power frames, technical frames. When you start with statistics and numbers, that's crazy, right? If they check out, if they make sense, if they are told well, you can really impress people and really kind of hold your ground and kind of translate into authority numbers, right? And we have seen this. You can kind of, take entire nations, the whole globe, right, under hostage if you have the right numbers and you propel them continuously. So they believe some sort of narrative here, right? So the technical frame is also a very, very powerful frame. And there are ways also to disrupt these frames, to kind of break them, right? To kind of change the narrative, to flip the status quo and regain control over the conversation. Debates on this level, they happen a little bit like a chess game, like a fight. You can say like a boxing match, right? You have different strategies. So here, one strategy is very clear. And this is probably also to the press and to what the reaction was so far, is to take immediately hold of a good rate, to have a good rate while you're speaking. That is based on the fact that we we just have so much of the body that can somehow transmit emotions during a presidential debate like this. Usually people are close-ups, the ones who are in question, of course, know this, and so they have to make sure that they win with, you know, with a striking vocal image, right? That they make sense also from a sonar, you know, like just from the acoustical way on how you perceive them. It's the voice that impacts us, right? There's the famous 738-55 rule, even though it was partially corrected, but I feel we know that the voice, the context, right, is way more important ultimately than the content. There's just so much information that is really necessary and important. It's the way how you bring that information. It's not coffee itself, it's how you serve coffee that makes Starbucks so important. So your vocal image, right, is a big thing of the presentation, and therefore you want to make sure that you respect some of the, you know, very, you know, crucial parameters of how to create authority with your vocal image. One of these things is to have a good rate for your delivery. Whenever you're speaking, whenever it's your time to speak, you want to make sure you have a good rate, because that undermines vitality, it undermines also authority, and it kind of, you know, it gives you also confidence as a speaker. So that's definitely a good strategy, unless, of course, you lose script.
It'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturers.
There was the first sign of panic, of subconscious panic, because he started well, I believe, the presentation so far. Of course, his voice, I mean, we'll talk about the quality of his voice right now. We're kind of just starting the rate and what the strategy is, just to assess how both kind of contenders started, with what kind of game plan they started here, what kind of war tactic they applied in order to impress vocally and also physically, and with what they're saying. And so the strategy here is clear. First, go on rate, denounce the opponent right away, and make sure that you kind of you know, can underline this type of argument that you're setting with some numbers in the end. Don't give them numbers straight away, because that, of course, annoys the brain. The brain doesn't like numbers right away. You need to weave them in somehow later in the fabric of the narration. Otherwise, he shuts down immediately in the assumption of the information.
Manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of households where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during.
That's very interesting. So that's present, past, future. So what he's doing here is a very old psychological game for narration and strategy for communication. So he's going to what happened in the past, and now he's saying, oh, there's more that needs to be done. Immediately he addresses the future. This also, of course, gives confidence in the authority that he wants to continue, and that there is a plan and there's a strategy behind that. He goes immediately to the future, then he jumps back into the past, right, where he was born, to the moment we are now. So it's, you know, past, present, future. It's a very known strategy, and it works very well in advertising and selling as well. I mean, we use it all the time. Influencers, all sorts of advertising kind of goes through this key.
In the month, there was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition.
Right. He kind of, you know, made it to the end of the sentence. But hey, I mean, besides the fact that maybe we talk about a little bit of his quality. Now we got a couple of minutes in. This is already 4 minutes, a minute that he's talking, I think. Minute something. You can say that the quality of the voice itself is not sparkling, right? What is the quality of the voice? In public speaking, in open communication, we have different pillars, right? Of you know, when we're assessing good quality of the voice, right? One of the pillars is, of course, volume. Volume creates the belief. The more outreach you have, right? You learn this as an actor very early, especially I was raised on the theater stage, basically. Before I got into, in TV industry, I relentlessly played theater on big stages. We're talking about 800, 900, even more attendance, sometimes, tops of like 1,000 people watching in the auditorium. And we're talking about open spaces, right? Not necessarily balls or auditoriums that are nicely shaped. So you really had to reach till the last row. Otherwise, they don't believe your character, because volume creates that belief. Of course, if you have too much volume, the excess of too much volume, of course, creates distortion, and again, you will be then perceived from the counterpart's brain as a threat, and therefore there's rejection in how they tend to evaluate you. So it's definitely negative. But if you want to be positively perceived by the people who are listening to you, volume definitely is one of those key factors in our vocal image that we have at our disposal as communicators, as performers, as actors, in order to impact and to entice our audience, right? And so therefore volume is missing here. Definitely we can already say after a minute in, there is, yes, the strategy is clear, the rate functions, he's okay, fresh. He's in the beginning, he's still there. So the rate that he delivered is a pretty good rate in terms of rhythm. What he said, he wanted absolutely to make sure, and this is how he saved himself with his last breath over the finishing line of this minute little monologue that he had there. They wanted to make sure to establish a baseline of character to the audience, establish a baseline of belief to the spectator, establish a baseline of communication with everybody who's watching right now. And so one of the things they chose after this week or even more at Camp David to train President Joe Biden for this presidential debate was definitely to look out for not to get entangled too much, not to lose too much ground, to be, always perceived as someone who's vital, who's charging, who's willing to work, and therefore rate, like rhythm, definitely translates that. And since they know, right, because, I'm sure they have pretty good coaches over there at the White House, they know that he can't deliver much volume. So this is why they focused initially on delivering at least a good rate and a good rhythm. And definitely he achieved that in a way. I mean, in his way of doing it, of course. So here, OG Jew, Trump and the White Hats got them all. 450,000 sealed indictments in the PACER federal system. Pence, Pelosi, Brennan, Comey, Garland, many more going to, oh yes, GITMO, prepare for the abs. For sure. I mean, this is what's, breaking news, what we're witnessing right now with the Supreme Court ruling that he's, in fact, partially immune. That definitely goes into an interesting direction in terms of how the cards are being played. Again, as an observer of all this, it's fascinating. I'm coming from European politics, right? It's very much, intellectual. Not now, it has lost completely its cultural ground and it's completely denigrated. You can say, besides the eastern parts of Europe, there is, I'm sorry to say that, but there is not much, serious politics anymore going on an intellectual level in Europe. So, but before that, it was truly interesting, like to witness always, because in the States there was just a completely different way in processing and accepting politics into daily life, and it's a way more. It's a very more charged debate emotionally also, rather than what's going on in Europe, where it's very like closed in emotional terms, and it's more like a functional, rational act of the civilization there, of the population there, and politics needs to explain to you this more rationally. Here it is way more kind of enticing by all and interweaved also by all these beliefs and currents and conspiracies and incredible information. I mean, this is just an incredible land, guys. What do you expect? And so therefore, I'm truly fascinated, and I'm really looking forward to many episodes like this to kind of, further down this presidential debate and all the developments to kind of assist and witness and give you good entertainment, and also to hang out together and kind of discuss what's going on here. Pat, what's up? Biden rushing? Yes, he's rushing. Yeah, they try to establish a rate. I mean, at least he has done a good job in executing that, what they told him, I guess, right? Or what they kind of worked together. I mean, it's not what they told him necessarily, just what they came up with after the coaching sessions, because they realized, right, this is our only strategy at, first.
To that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can.
Now, this is something that is reoccurring now, a pattern that you can see every time he has to come up with accurate information. He's blinking with his eyes nervously. That's a fear effect, right? He's afraid to, go there into his memory because he knows, this is the usual, manifestation of it, that, it's clear. He's an older man, and there's nothing bad about it, right? He tries to remember something that it's difficult, right? To put all these informations together, all these numbers together, even for a seasoned speaker. Don't underestimate that, right? I'm not defending. I'm just saying that you can clearly see a pattern here. Now, this has been the third time, so it's a confirmed pattern. Every time there are numbers, he's blinking nervously. That is usually, it's usually the manifestation of fear, insecurity, and uncertainty.
Beginning next year.
So definitely not a trait that a president should represent, for sure. Yes, of course, that's the result of that logical reasoning. Yes, absolutely. It's not a positive, even if it's just subconsciously. Believe me, guys, this is way more important for us. This is the real behavior that we study. Again, in the 738-55 rule, that numbers go and vary, but definitely there is something to it. It's the information that we transmit. It's the melody, how we transmit it, the quality of our voice, and that can be broken down in 4, 5, 6 different pillars. And then also, of course, our body language, right? Our physical information that we give out to our audience in order to kind of underline or emphasize the information that we're about to describe. So all these things come together to public speaking, to great communication, to leaders, political statements, addresses. All this stuff is truly important and gets trained heavily by these folks, right? And so already the fact that the voice is fragile, there is not much volume there, and that every time, there is a certain number that needs to be pretty much exact because he knows he gets fact checked. So then he kind of goes into a little bit of a panic mode subconsciously. We can see that he's a bit scared of it because his eyes start fluttering and flickering, like blinking a bit. And so that's definitely subconsciously not a good nonverbal message that you want to send out to your audience.
In a situation and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done. Yeah,
okay, we talk about that. When are you coming back to Sturm der Liebe? Zauberdrache is a beautiful profile name, by the way. It's really hard to kind of, have you ever been to Florida? The States, it's really hard. It's like once you hear, it's really hard to get somewhere else. It's just, just come over and you understand. Raven was struggling and definitely afraid of the debates itself. Yeah, he's definitely under strings here. Raven Wolf, you're right. He's definitely under strings. He's tense. Hey, guys, by the way, this is really good stuff that we're bringing out here. Chat, I mean, come on. Let's fire up the like button a little bit, guys, because with this stuff, you really can, you can knock opponents out. I mean, communication-wise, you can win negotiations with this. You can use this as performer, as in whatever field of communication. So this is really good stuff we're bringing out here at the COACHMC studio. Good quality. Make sure to smash the like button. This is about our future. Like every Monday episode, tomorrow we're gonna dive into the past with 3 sages and the time machine, and then on Thursday we're gonna always take at the current state of things with our present time episode, which is happening at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know the pattern is weird, but hey, please forgive me. I can't stop loving you. Really quick, besides of course the this was like a prime, like a first voice analysis. We're going to go a bit more into depth there. Of course, we're going to travel a bit more deeper into the matter. Let's take also a look at the opponent, what the opponent is doing while, in this case, Biden is speaking. Very stoic. So the stoic frame is a good frame. especially in the beginning. So that's definitely a good advice. What I mean with stoic frame is when you have a podium, you just grab it left and right. You can also place your hands, but just that's of course a different message. But you can, just take the podium, take control of the obelisk, which is also a very, potent subconscious influence, and just stand still and just accept without any reaction, almost like you would stand on trial, right? Like in front of the judge. Just have a stoic pose. That is the column pose. It's a very powerful pose. It's also called the Zenith and Nadir. Zenith and Nadir pose means you are a connector of earth and heaven. You are the eye. So you're very representative. You're self-determined. You are authoritarian, and you're convinced of what you're doing, and you don't let anything affect you. There's just no reaction. Nothing takes away your focus. That's a good initial way, definitely, to kind of start a trial or a debate like this.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID.
A thing that I just personally feel, it is a little bit weird that these people just get together, is like bada boom, and they start with the facts. I don't know what CNN, if this is like a law or anything, I don't know, but it kind of, to me, that these people are not shaking hands, not talking to each other, not really perceiving each other. They stand there, they just get there, and it's like, hey, this is the presidential debate for the United States. When you do something like this, when you put people in such an echelon, right, where you kind of feel that the nation's wealth is at stake here. So don't you want to address that a little bit? Kind of an intro, like everybody, like read a statement, say something, instead of just coming here and spitting out facts. Everybody can spit out facts. We don't need Trump to show up or Biden to show up to tell us something that a computer can tell us. I want to feel the ambience. I want to feel the experience here. Like, who are these people? At their core, what is it that they try to transmit me? And this is way more important than all the numbers that, you can always debate numbers from which perspective and what type of context and if they're completely right, but you can't debate instinct, hunch, gut feeling. You can't debate relationship and somehow getting pulled into someone else's world. You can't debate that, right? There is no controversy there, whether you are liked or you're not being liked. So, and therefore you need like something to speak about first, don't you guys think? I don't know. Isn't that weird for you? I don't know. For me, it's weird. They're not kind of addressing this at all. They're just coming in and start talking about numbers, and he did this and she did that and he didn't do this and I saved that. It's like, is this really about just, pointing the finger at each other, or do we want to tell something like more deeply, show something? I guess on a time limit, you have to rush a bit. No time for showmanship. But guys, you have to understand, showmanship or communication itself, right? Again, that's all we have. Because, again, information itself is first flawed. Second, it's depending on the perception and the context of what brain is perceiving the information. And third, and most importantly, it's something that everyone else can reproduce. There's nothing unique about just a piece of information, a data point, a number, right? It's how you do it. Again, it's not what you do. And therefore, I find it kind of puzzling to say, yeah, you just have that amount of time. This is the president and the former president. They should have way more time, not less time. And to me, also, right from the start, there's also, like, you can always start a controversy out of any type of info point, of data vector, of every piece of number. You can always start a controversy about that. Wouldn't it be way cleverer to have way more people present in this case, like more like teams, or like a real, like almost like a Senate type of situation? I don't want to say ancient Rome, but like something that goes a little bit like into having maybe, you know, specialists of any field coming in with you, and also independent observers maybe, and some other classified people, I don't know, and all these fashions can then debate, you know, maybe per sector, or having a certain amount of time, or debate for as much as they want, and what is the conclusion there, instead of saying, yeah, you just have 2 minutes, dude, you just have 2 minutes. It's like, why? Yeah, Pat, as like maybe a remnant of an old system where people didn't have the numbers in their pockets. Sure, it's true. Theater of politics. That's sure a theater. It's definitely a theater. It's a show. It's all entertainment, guys. I mean, let's see.
And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only
interesting that he is, of course, using a little bit more his physicality, but at the same time, he surprises me a little bit. I didn't really expect him to be so composed. It's a good rate. He's talking at a good rate. His voice has definitely more quality and more volume. It's not perfect by no means. His vocal image is absolutely, yeah, it's not perfect, but he definitely has more volume, which subconsciously translates into belief. He seems to have a bit more control about what he's saying, and he's steadying, you know, he has a steady flow, and he is most importantly not afraid of saying something. That is truly, truly important as a communicator, as a pitcher, as a seller, as, you know, if you don't have confidence, if you are afraid, then you are afraid. You can't be in the moment and be afraid at the same time. You can have a great performance and being afraid at the same time. It just doesn't work. So whether you are confident and you are in control of your game, then, you know, then you can always blame a little bit of the tonality, the energy level. There's always, you have good days, you have bad days. But when you are afraid, that's a terrible day, and it kind of blocks yourself out from connecting with your audience, right? You come across as restrictive, as elusive, as not really clear, not effective, and therefore, you know, people tend to be skeptical about you if they don't get you right away, if they don't have really time to evaluate, like in this case, and the only thing that you say is, you know, bullet points and information. So, and that I can't check in the moment. So therefore, I need to rely my judgment on other factors like your voice, like the quality of your voice, like your physicality, like your visual language, right? We have a vocal image and a visual language, and both speak to the counterpart's brain. And if these things don't really harmonize, if they don't really like flow in with each other, then we have a disrupted, you know, kind of view, and that is never good. And you know, when it's about judging you and your performance. So therefore, we can already say, also I would never recommend someone to look down for. I mean, we just published a video. This is so funny, guys. If you go to my Instagram account, I'm sorry, Jenna, to break the, you know, because this is exactly what we covered today on my Instagram account. Can we just go there for a second and kind of show you this, because this is too much of a, first the coincidence with the board in the background, and now this. I mean, this can't be just, you know, some sort of you know, a hiccup in the universe. This is meant to be, I believe. So therefore, let's check it out. I have something for you here. So this is what we published today. I just removed this really quick, and I'm gonna share something really quick from my Instagram account. This is so funny. Okay, yeah, this is from today. Probably, can you hear this? Yeah, probably should.
Yes, that's true. Why? Because energy flows where concentration goes. So when you look down, this is where your energy flows. Now you're watching the floor. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because the audience is watching you. No one else is watching the floor. If it's part of the scene, let's say you're on top of a high rise and you're looking down, or there's a canyon or a chasm, or you should jump over a little ridge or anything, right? Of course, then look down, because the story now happens. It's been told behind your eyes. There is something that you're filling up in this moment. So the energy is part of the narration. Otherwise, if you just look down, let's say you have your text somewhere placed in your living room because you received 12 sites the night before.
No, right, but you get the point, right? And this is what this is something that we published today. Now, look at him.
Illegal immigrants, and
he's looking down, right? He's looking down for too long. When you look down for too long, energy flows where your concentration goes. So otherwise, concentration goes and the energy flows, right? So if you look down, this is where your energy flows. This is where you redirect your energy. It's not a good thing, because you're interrupting, you're cutting off the connection with your audience, with the camera, with your own energy, right? You check out. So if you don't have any other motivation than to kind of catch your text and make sure to hold your text a little bit higher, just take a quick peak and then come back, and then maybe go down just for another quick second, instead of just looking down for too much, because that kind of again, it interrupts the connection with the audience. You go down with your energy. Check out the COACHMC on Instagram as well to catch these beautiful tips. So crazy that we just covered this today, right? This is something that you should avoid also for your self-tapes, for your monologues. To look down extensively or for a prolonged period of time is never a good recipe to get completely acknowledged, right? So make sure to kind of interrupt as less as possible. If possible, absolutely never interrupt that beautiful connection from my centerline to the audience centerline to the heart of the spectator.
bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Okay, he's absolutely killing us. It's interesting, right? He also starts with the old key, the old metric key to start in the past, how it was in the past, and we did a great job in the past, bada boom. Of course, he's way more secure. He doesn't seem to be afraid. He's a bit tired. He seems to be a bit tired. I can understand. I mean, these people are, yes, probably also on drugs or anything else, but, they need to work. They need to earn their dollars. Believe me, learning all these lines, going from city to city. If you're not used to it, if you're not a showman by yourself, if this is not it's truly a very, energy draining profession for sure. Yeah, it's theater of politics. And then Pratt says, Trump has tall shoulders. Biden looks slumped, but that could be to the poor camera angle. No, you're right. He's a bit hunched forward. Trump stands right. Like I said, he has a very stoic pose. It's the column pose or the famous eye pose. It kind of helps to kind of underline this concept of authority, of strength, of reliability also. If you're hunched over, if you're slumped over like Biden, and you're also looking down, these are two absolute no-goes. So this is your visual language and, of course, everything that, the physicality, what you kind of transmit there, it's not positive. He looks like, a bit tired, a bit fatigued by all this already. And we're not even 5 minutes into the show. Yeah, it's a poor, I don't know if it's the angle. Definitely the angle doesn't help. You're right, Pat. But it's definitely, you want to make sure that, especially in the beginning of such a debate or such an important presentation, that you don't slump over too quickly, right? That you kind of remind yourself that you want to stand up, that you want to transmit and emanate energy. Again, what is communication? It is connection. It is acknowledgement. It is recognition. So you connect with your audience, you flow with your audience. And once you have an emotional grasp of your audience, you control them by setting the right words, using the right metrics, having a great rate, having a believable and authentic volume, making some breaks here and there, of course, stopping for a pause, and be all over secure of what you're saying and not afraid. And maybe even, on this level, we can't really demand it. I mean, we could technically, but it's really not possible. These are older folks, right? Their melody, of course, lacks oscillation, right? If this would be like a young performer, let's say, someone who just, kind of, is definitely younger than this, and he needs to make that type of presentation or a very important debate or something, we would definitely work on the melody, on the quality of the melody of the voice. You can't really pretend that by older people. Why? Because melody creates memory. Melody creates memory. Melody creates memory, right? You can remember thousands of songs, right? Word by word, but you can't recite like a whole page of a book, even if it's your most favorite book, even if it's Lord of the Rings. These bastards. No, seriously. So as a communication coach, right, I would work a lot, especially with younger performers, on the quality of your melody. People don't realize how that is important. And what is melody? It is to have a certain harmony in your voice and to have certain oscillations when you want to emphasize certain pieces of content, but it's also the way you charge your lines emotionally, your tonality, right? The right gram, the right addition or the right subtraction of your emotional intensity that vitalizes the line and gives it more credence and transmits way more what your core, what your center line is actually saying. That's the famous subtext. That's acting training 101. You need a subtext. You need a real reason why you say the things that you say. The problem about these presidential debates, I just also based on the fact that they allegedly say true things. True things are boring, right? In advertising and marketing and entertainment, true things are truly boring because they don't create any sort of contrast. You have to kind of put something beneath the lines to make them appetizing, to make them, crisp, to make them stand out. So when you say the truth and you have to kind of, substitute built-in images, you have to create metaphors, you have to spice up your language, even if you're delivering just numbers. This is something that we do over here, guys, at the COACHMC studio. Like with presentations that sometimes look dry on the outside, you can't even imagine with a couple of tweaks what can happen, like how it can blossom up and turn into something organic and a beautiful delivery. A lot of company bosses have that, especially like in a small retail and medium retail level, right? To kind of communicate their ideas, run their companies, their teams. And we do all sorts of public speaking courses, also to hotel managers, people who lead those groups of people that have to work intersectively, interactively for their respective field of work, which is truly complicated. It's like, it's not something that comes easy, and people underestimate what successful, like an effective communication can do in order to kind of charge a team successfully. This is also stuff that you learn from Marines. Joko Wilkins talks about this in a podcast, right? But definitely, if you need help in doing so, come over to the COACHMC studio. This is something that we do on we've added this program. This has been so successful since public speaking program is growing probably bigger than anything else right now for the COACHMC studio for our agency. So yeah, come over. Let's set up a discovery session. Let's hit the base then. Yeah, a confident liar versus old man with a cold. Yeah, they're both liars for sure. In a way, they need to lie, right? This is the game of politics. Yes, but yeah, he's confident for sure. You're right about that. And then the old man with a cold. It's not a good image he gives away right from the start. Definitely not how you want to come across, especially in the first minutes. You have to impress your opponent and also your audience, and have to make sure for yourself that you charge yourself up. But hey, there's always the room for a comeback, right? I mean, in arts, you can sometimes, kind of twist the whole thing. And Trump is way more entertaining, but everything she says is a lie. He says performance means nothing when you lie. Well, it depends. Like, of course, acting in a way is also a lie, if you want to call it so, because, we are impersonating other people that are, going through these imaginary circumstances. And lies is, like I said, it's very subjective. Well, what do you think is a lie here? Everything, nothing at all. It's maybe an even philosophical question, right? Because we don't know. They have deconstructed the truth so much in the last 25, 30 years that we came to the point where a lie can't be even, you know, recognized anymore from truth, right? I mean, the ex-Twitter, you know, CEO, he just recently he tweeted that in a couple of years, deepfake will be so powerful that we all will think that this is all a simulation, right? So we are blurring the boundaries of truth, of authenticity and lies more and more, to a point where it's unrecognizable, undistinguishable. And I think this is by intent, this is by design. I'm not saying this is something good, right? I'm just debating the philosophical question here, that lies, truths, facts, fake news, it's all so many words, you know, that's it's all liquefied, right? It has become like some sort of like more of a metaphysical kind of, you know, endeavor to understand where the truth lies. It's truly crazy, and at the same time also truly remarkable, because these people here that should be aware of all the rules, of all the techniques, the skills, and the training that should be, you know, in charge of our nation, right? They should be the first to observe certain you know, trainings and kind of come across as these perfect communicators, and yet you know, Trump is definitely way more present than Biden, but also he could have done better. I feel in the you know, in the first minute, he could have, you know, just opened up a bit more volume-wise, just slightly, just to make a bit of a grander impression. But I think the stoic game that he's playing, it's definitely a strategy like Biden's strategy, right? They're both playing different strategies, which is truly interesting. Biden wants to impress with velocity, with rate, with rhythm, with intermingling facts, and kind of, you know, blaming the other for certain mistakes that he kind of had to compensate for. And Trump is going way more quieter than usual, with a way more subtle volume that is way calmer, and more like the visual language is way more prominent than his vocal image. And that's interesting that both have chosen kind of different strategies here, how to start this debate. No, sure. I mean, you know what I mean. Of course, lies are distinguishable. But when we're talking about, you know, these echelons up here, there is no way of, you know, trusting anyone anymore, because the ways of getting to such, you know, summit points of power, they're just plastered, right? The routes, the highways, the winding roads, right? And all these lights are blinding, and all these roads are winding, right? Like Oasis once said, to get up there, you have to make, you know, certain compromises. So for them, I don't know if they can distinguish truth, true facts, lies. I don't know if they can really distinguish that anymore. You know what I mean? It's just, for them, it's all part of, you know, staying attached to this power source and nothing else, and denouncing everything that is common sense and decent about, you know, kind of about themselves in order to stay on power. It's, I think, like an addiction almost. Yes, of course. And repeating a lie over and over does not make it true. It's still a lie, right? Future boy, you're nailing it, absolutely. And this is something also Goebbels, you know, kind of extracted out of Edgar Ribe's propaganda. Just repeat the lie over and over for the masses, repeat it for them, so you can establish more authority. That doesn't matter. At a certain point, people will repeat that they can't distinguish anymore, because they have more things to do. That's why when you live in unstable times, you can't double check. You can't really double check with yourself, right? Your upper authority is kind of, you know, is busy, is focused on so many other things that are way more important, that you kind of you lose touch of all these little events on a daily basis. You get confused, and this is, again, I think, by design, right? Otherwise, they know exactly, if you bombard people with bad news all the time, ambiguous news and fake news, that they kind of blur the lines of what is right and what is wrong.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world, he's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world.
All right.
And, you know, the fact of the matter is that...
He tries to play the first joke. He tried to play the first joke, not bad.
We found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover.
Yeah, there he kind of maneuvered with Hoover, right? Maneuver with Hoover was not so cooler, but yeah, he kind of saved it somehow.
The idea that he did something that was significant, and the military.
Yeah, he looks down a lot. He looks down a lot. This is not good. He has a very, slow. Now he's slowing down a little bit, and yeah, he's taking more and more time. So you can see like the deterioration that is happening in front of your eyes, right? He started a bit faster, a bit more assertive, a bit more secure, and now he's already kind of taking more and more time to kind of complete the lines, and he's cracking up.
When he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where
he's looking down again for too long.
You had a notion that
he's blinking. It was okay because it was a filled blink, that is a so-called filled blink, but still.
We were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops.
It's not good, right? He skips from century to decade, 90 years of difference. It doesn't undermine or underline his competence, unfortunately.
Dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. Now, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. And they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never.
So that's just to stop it here. It's now he's picking up rate. No, Trump is picking up rate. He's using his physique way more. His right hand is coming up, indicating all sorts of things. So personally, I don't like speakers that are, using their index too much, because indicating at people. There's in Dante Alighieri's Commedia dell'arte, not Commedia dell'arte, La Divina Commedia, the Divine Comedy. Groom to Be. This little tea sip was brought to you by Groom to Be. Groom to Be is a wonderful tea. It tastes herbal, it tastes liquid, it tastes green like the groom that I want to be. Buy Groom to Be green tea, and then your day will set you free. I don't know what I'm saying here, but you get the poetry, right? The thing is, when you're using your index too much, right? In Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, it has been said, I think that the sixth ring of doom that you find in hell are the people that are constantly poking at you. So the people that are in hell, there are several rings of hell in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. I can only recommend you to read that piece of literature. It's fantastic. It's an incredible book. It's like it actually constitutes the construct of how the Vatican is teaching hell and the concepts of heaven and hell. It's absolute. So Dante Alighieri is canon for the Vatican. So don't underestimate that piece. It's incredible, right? And it's actually like a comic book in a way, and an incredible tale. And on the sixth level, you find the people that are poking constantly in you while they're talking to each other. This is how much Dante despises them. And it's not a good thing. Right? It creates this effect that someone, is threatening you. Your reptilian center, the oldest layer of your brain that is in the center of your brain, the crocodile brain, the R center, right? Doesn't like that as well, right? It's some sort of a sign of threat. And the blamer is the one who's also carrying the pistol, of course. Now, if you have that accusational index pointing and you do it effectively, here, I have to say, Trump did it a couple of times in a more acceptable way, where he kind of just, You know, he just had a very casual, not even too severe or even too threatening or too aggressive. It was a very casual type of pointing to the side. Now, you know, we can debate as experts about how this actually affects this. We actually don't know, because there's definitely no research that has been done for the casual sideways accusator, right? For the index that is kind of pointing to side. But I feel like it is definitely like a bit funnier. It's a bit more, so it's more like kind of an entertaining authority, which again is a good frame. So you see how this to that changes immensely how you perceive that person. If you do this, you know, this is, you know, you, if you do this, it's kind of a more casual, it's definitely like a lighter version of that, as not as, it doesn't get perceived as negatively, or to me at least, I have this impression right now. Let me also know what you think. So definitely, whether this was a bit of a like softer move or the you know, straightforward pointing at each other, you don't point at people, right? Period. It's just not a good thing that you want to do as a public speaker, as a presenter. There are showmanship. There's showmanship where you can use it as an effect. Then it's strong. Magicians do that, right? They are also very powerful non-verbal communicators on stage, right? And musicians do that, and magicians do that, you know, musicians as well, by the way. When there is a certain rhythm, a certain beat maybe ending, or there is like a big reveal and the attention needs to be drawn to a certain place, then you can use the index, of course, in a powerful way. And then it's like a piece of showmanship. Then, of course, it's nicely integrated. Otherwise, this finger here is called the blamer for a reason, right? It's not something that is likable, right? Let's define it like that. Great, terrible promo for T. Yes, it's like, maybe this is like inverted promo, right? And by the way, there is no tea company endorsing the COACHMC studio. What a shame. What a shame. Trump won the debate if you don't fact check his lies. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure also a couple of things how, you know, Biden kind of jumped over, right? We saw it from decade to century, from trillion to billions and back and forth. I mean, it's not a lie per se. It's a technical mistake, but it's definitely also not something positive. Yeah, absolutely. That's terrible. You know, the thing is, I coached several politicians on different levels. And the thing about politics is, and I get it, there is a legitimate cause to the real lie in order to maybe protect population. Of course, you can always cite, Winston Churchill, who kind of, lied officially of not knowing what the Enigma was saying in order to not give away the information to the Germans that they actually deciphered the Enigma. And he let a couple of, of 1,000 people, so his own population, die in order to have that, advantage, that psychological advantage over the Germans. I'm not really sure the story is 100% true this way. I've researched it quite extensively. There are certain layers to it. But yes, sometimes there is a diplomatic lie in order to secure, the safety of your own population, or to, win long-term strategic win. And this is not only Occidental, this is not only Western type of war philosophy, or, this is also happening in Oriental philosophy. You have this in the art of war as well. So it's not just, this is not just Western thinking, right? So there are diplomatic lies in order to kind of save a status quo, to have like a bigger leverage on your opponent that you deem the evil one, and therefore you somehow are morally kind of justified for proclaiming that. But this is a very this is a discussion that we definitely could have. Like, is it justified? Is it something good? Like, you could also extend that debate over, is it justified to kind of torture a single human being in order to save 1 million people, right? Is that justified? Can we do something like that? I really don't know. Like, what can you say here? And And it's so fascinating because these debates show us these primordial emotional states that we are constantly in and how we react to them and how we can take control of them as well. This is why I feel like the show is truly important today, like always, of course, but this is like a truly important one. Like if you want to have authority, leadership, and contain constant control of your, operations, then this is something that you should study. The way you communicate your ideas is fundamental for the success of every endeavor that you have in mind.
And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, Future Boy, what you're saying, no, come on. Trump lies about trivial crap that has no meaning. That makes it worse. I can't really fact check for that. I honestly, I don't know what you're referring to right now, like granularly. For sure, he makes up stuff. I mean, guys, what are you expecting? Like this is the greatest capital force in the world still, the United States. And we know it's a big circus. I mean, we have Hollywood, we have the Federal Reserve, we have so many, circus rings here. And of course, the greatest showman wins this battle, this game. Please, let's not pretend this is a serious system for itself. I mean, that hypothesis is, I think, out of the window since the 22nd of November, 1963, to be honest. I mean, this is the way I look at history, is like, hey, since that day, the day that pretty much knocked out everybody in 63 and the years that followed, the system has clearly shown its face. So to me, everything that came afterwards is just a rigged show. And of course, the biggest showman will win. Guys, come on, let's be honest about that. So whether it's trivial lies, big lies, it's, this is part of the showmanship of a certain person. He has made success based on that. People are voting him for that, I guess, I suppose. Like I said, I'm here in this country now for a year. I talked, of course, extensively to a lot of people. And funny enough is like most of the workforce that I did so far in my life here professionally in the United States was actually, in those blue states like New York and California. Now I'm living in more of a red state in Florida. And so all these different perspectives are truly fascinating. I'm meeting so many people. And I love the fact that you guys love to talk about politics so much and that you engage so much also emotionally. It's really interesting. Like, again, in Europe, it's totally different. But to say that here it counts which lies what is a little bit of an hypocrisy, I believe. Future Boy, don't take it, as a fact. But I feel this way because we know politics is a rigged game in itself. Do you feel like there's any way of authenticity or realness or in very few cases when it's about politics, but it's just the nature of the system. The nature of the system is a circus, so the greatest showman wins. You know what I mean? Pat Brad, body language sells a lie. Let's continue to see how well it sells. Yes, absolutely. No, his body language is way more engaged. Trump takes control over that. He definitely wins already subconsciously in points by using his physical information as well. Biden was so far relying more on the rhythm, but that is falling more and more apart. He never used his hands effectively. His body language is more slumped over. He's a little bit hunched. He looks down extensively for a longer period of time. So these are a lot of, nonverbal communication red flags, right, that you should actually avoid if you have to make a big impression. So Trump definitely wins already. Also, the way he looks and addresses at everybody, he's a pro. He kind of comes across way more statesman-like in a way than Biden himself.
Over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we
Well, the reason we got through better than any other country is because the pharmaceutical companies that in that time were soaring and selling their products to everyone were also American companies. So that is sort of a slightly, like misleading type piece of information, right? Because it kind of hides another truth. But yes, technically, of course, they were thriving because they were in control of the situation. Oops.
We cut the taxes. As an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took...
Good. The use of the hands is getting better. It's less blamer. He's open up his palms. That's a great way. Open palms. It's Jesus. It's a placitor, someone who's inviting, who's accepting people. And, also the stoic position, how he's so far placed behind the desk. He's not moving too much with his waist. He's listening in a very non-emotional way. I like that. It's sort of, it shows that it kind of, gets the message or the idea across that he's processing information. This is the nonverbal message that we're transmitting by doing that. And so therefore, from that standpoint, it's good. This movement here, the preciser, right? It's interesting. I wouldn't also do it too much. Italians do this, right? There are many ways of doing this. But this, of course, like taking the focus and bringing it forward, it's a very interesting psychological little move, a little gesture that you can do a couple of times. It's the preciser, like kind of pointing out a little piece of detail, which of course gives away, that he's total control of what he's saying and definitely kind of emanates that type of confidence. Definitely a plus point.
In more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has.
This is the leveler, right? If you have something like we have done, no one else has done, pay attention to politicians. They love to kind of emphasize a term like no one, or this also like is a historical day sometimes, but when you're referring to everyone, to no one, to all these maximized principles, they advise you, they coach you, right? To kind of use the leveler. The leveler is a beautiful, again, it's also distribution. It's the Vishnu of the poses, right? For a politician. And that means, you're closing stuff down, you're showing authority, but it's friendly authority. And at the same time, you're giving away, again, a lot of confidence. And this is a good way also to close statements, like to kind of close a reasoning cycle in your narrative, whatever you're saying, right? When you have something that you have like a thesis or an affirmation, and you kind of exemplify that affirmation by 3 sub-arguments. Usually you use 2 to 3 sub-arguments to kind of fortify that assumption, that affirmation. And during these exemplifications, you have 3 types of gestures that you want to use, right? Because there are 3 pieces of information that should all be processed differently in order to close that cycle of reasoning that goes out with that initial statement, right? I know it kind of sounds a little bit complicated if you break it down into a drawing, which you could have been, doing. This is the lazy COACHMC, right? That just hangs around and thinks about the world and designs. No, I could have drawn that. That would have been a bit more efficient to explain. But you catch the drift, right? When you have an affirmation, you usually want to kind of state it on 3 pillars of argumentation, of sub-stratified pieces of information that kind of solidify what you just claimed to know, what you just affirmed, what you made as a statement. And for these 3 pillars, you use 3 different gestures. You want to make sure to have 3 different little things that you do with your body in order to kind of emphasize or underline them. Hope that's clear now. Hope I'm a good communicator to you guys. You said Trump is not moving so much with his waist. In a good way. I watched another YouTube content producer that started using a standing desk, and you can tell it's distracting. Yes. I have a master class where it's all about the chair and using the chair as a communicator, but also as an actor, of course, in an effective way of not getting distracted, but also using the chair as a powerful, like a point of force. It's a POF, right? Don't sink in, don't exhaust your energy, don't lose your energy, use the energy on the seat or on the desk. And how to do that? by interacting with your waist, because it's the waist that moves in certain directions. So you want to establish, usually you want to establish 3 points of focus, the drishti points. That's actually from Indian, that's yoga culture, right? That's the center of the universe, drishti points. So you have 3 points of focus, and you make sure that they are all in different, distances from you. So you have a closer point of focus, a medium range point of focus, and a wide range point of focus. You also do this as an actor when you rehearse on a new stage. You want to get in tune with the auditorium and the stage. You want to make sure that you have 3 different points of focus where you redirect your hip stance and your waistline. So to this one, this is how my waist moves. To that one in medium range, this is how my waist moves. And to that one in the outer range, to the lower range, and the higher range, far more distant range, right? This is how my waist moves. So I have 3 waist movements for 3 points of focus. And now I can insert, even if I stand, a very dynamic range of communication with all 3 points of focus without moving too much or looking as if I'm shaky or I'm nervous, right? It's just, decent things, and it's your waistline always conducting the operation here. But yeah, you can check out my masterclass video about that, or, hit me up on readytoperform.com. Ding dong. And this is why it's super, super important to use your waist effectively. It definitely underlines your dynamic, your vitality, and also your authority. Like always, authority is the underlying root concept of all these things, right? Of the visual language that you want to transmit to your audience, to the counterpart's brain. Hi, everybody. Wish you a great night, evening, day. Lisa Buchholz. Thank you. Same to you. Pat, hello, Lisa. Coach is Cuban. We can forgive her for voting for... Coach, I'm not Cuban. Who says I'm Cuban? Interested for sure. Yes. Trump... Why you say her? You say always her. It's the best showman wins generally. So Future Boy said, it is. The best showman wins generally. Trump is very entertaining, but we know he lies. Yes, again, again, which lies? Please enlighten me. I mean this seriously. Like, what is it? Lying. You can't trust him. The cuts did nothing for poor middle class. Honestly, I'm not into, breaking this down on a nuclear level. But Future Boy, I know, administration is run by different parties, different currents. So not because someone, emits a law that necessarily kind of affects immediately and everybody how the law is intended to be. Again, I'm not breaking a spear. I'm just playing devil's advocate for a second because it's too general to say, yeah, that or that. And I'm speaking also for Biden or Trump in that case. I don't care, right? You can't just say because, well, that didn't bring anything to middle class or poor or to the lower classes. That doesn't necessarily mean that the law was poorly written or that the law wasn't, forged with the best of intent. Sometimes the machine that translates the law and makes it then actually tangible law and applicable law for all the administrative, branches of the government. Sometimes the machine itself is so flawed or sometimes so occupied. Like, I give you a very good example. Sometimes a syndicate, right? A syndicate, and we're seeing this also right now in Italy. The film syndicate, it is actively working against its own interest in order to destabilize the public opinion about the current government. So they rather block certain finances and budgets and support and grants and all types of support for some filmmaking branches. So they will complain about the situation and blame it on the current government. And by the way, I'm not a Meloni fan at all. I think she's horrible, right? And the government, Italian governments are usually all horrible, right? But this is one of the, it's just a tragedy. So I'm not endorsing her government, but some of the stuff she actually made is not that bad. Only it doesn't get enforced on an administrative level from the syndicates, for example, because they rather kind of block certain procedures in order to blame the government then to kind of, overthrow them even or to help, supporting the opposition. So sometimes what I want to say, the machine that translates the thought is so flawed that you can't really rely and say, hey, this is like the general thing. It's this tax didn't bring this reaction or this effect, and it's his fault. You know, always kind of look at it more granularly. And then at the end, if you really research it, that's why I'm saying, give me like a clear line of thought, and so I can understand your reasoning. But if you don't research it fully, believe me, in politics, there's so many games that are being played. It's really hard to tell who the bad guy is and who the good one is. It's really, really hard. You said Trump is not moving so much with his waist. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I jumped a little part. Interesting, not interested. All right, okay. No, devil's advocate. Did Trump tax cuts for the rich do anything good for you? Like I said, I'm here now for over a year. Before that, I was always working back and forth when I was in Europe. So for now, my financial experience on a company level is very positive here. But I'm not really sure this is due to his law. I'm not really aware of that. I'm not educated on that matter for what it is. I'm not really sure the rich guys will ever be tax cut, to be honest. And this is also part of the game that they will never actually tell you. Of course, they will always privilege them and try to kind of, comfort them with laws or loopholes in the law. They will always build a lawyer team that will somehow kind of enable them to escape tax laws. I mean, this is just the nature of big companies, right? Whether you have a blue, a red, a brown, a yellow, or purple president. Yeah, we know trickle down never work, trickle down into billionaire bank accounts. Yes, absolutely. I mean, definitely billionaires, they employ people. And that Trump did, made any donors and friends he get tax cuts to that. That's just again, this is part of American politics. I think that's modus operandi, nothing to be really anymore. There's no scandal here, I believe. Not that that is a good thing, but it's just the procedure. It's the natural way it goes.
We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than...
It's very interesting, right? We have the accusator or the blamer, the lever, and the preciser, right? Bum, bum, bum. It's like almost like a Shaolin Kung Fu move. But these are three, distinct gestures that you use in order not to manipulate, but to kind of reinforce your argument also psychologically with your physicality. Very interesting. And uses them flawless. So good job.
Our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country.
Now, this is a good way also to interrupt really quick. Very good delivery so far. He has increased his rate, his rhythm a little bit. He's reaching out with his volume a tad more than before. At least it feels like he's kind of raising the volume a little bit more. And now he did something interesting. Besides, adding more and more good gestures, well placed in. The left hand is glued to the podium, to the desk. It's just his right hand. Also very clear sign, kind of indicating and making the movements for most of the movements, for most of the gestures he did. I think it was a couple of times, just once or twice, where he used both hands. Otherwise, he has a very stoic pose still. But this is the first time you can see it with his shoulder stand that he's now opening up. He's saying, I have a question. Now, that is a very smart move. Questions are very smart moves because the brain wants to know what the question is. If you announce a question, everyone wants to know what the question is. And then you have a question, and then he opens up. So he opens up with his stance. He's directly now, he's sending the energy. And that is like, it's like the glove, right? It's the feather glove that you kind of, you smack your opponent with, right? And you throw it into the middle and down you wait. This is a duel. It's great. It's a good way. It's underlined by the fact that he's saying, I have a question for you. In fact, I'm doing it right now. He shows intention. He takes over initiative. He opens up physically. And the question is always great because the brain loves questions in itself. Our reptilian center, our crocodile center, the oldest layer of our brain that decides whether or not how and when the information gets and which way truncated for the upper echelons of our brain, kind of is like a bouncer in front of a club, right? And the bouncer in front of the club, he has to kind of determine and assess in a matter of seconds whether or not he lets you into the club, whether or not you're fitting the vibe, the crowd, the money request, all that stuff, right? If you're safe, if you're okay, if you're not too high, all that stuff, right? So questions for the reptilian center are great because if they're not too complicated, if they're not too, convoluted and not too complicated and not too long and not too sophisticated, then questions are a great opener. It's a great way to get around the bouncer into the club. That means to the upper levels of your counterpart's brain. Start with a question. This is also what lawyers usually do. You can do this online for influencers. Also a great way. I have a question for you. What do you think about this and that? Questions are great. They kind of ignite our imagination. We want to know. We want to always wonder what's next, what's next, what's next. So great questions. They kind of ignite our fantasy. A great way to communicate and establish authority. Future boy, I appreciate your interpretation of charisma and influence. It's sad that Americans pay more attention to acting than actual policy that helps them. For sure. I mean, if we want to have that type of conversation, for sure. I mean, this is definitely, we're going to watch until the end, or, we're going to watch another while for sure to whether or not, how we like the showmanship that was displayed today by both candidates, by the former president, by the actual president. That's for sure. That's another, we can definitely debate on that. And we did already on Saturday Night Hypnosis, the program. I'm privileged to be a guest of the Saturday Night Hypnosis clan, streaming every Saturday on Hypnotics YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the 94th time now coming up, or no, it's already the 98th time, I believe. Wow, I lost count. It's incredible. We're close to 100 episodes. And we talked about that for sure. I mean, of course, it's sad that the actual content, the information itself is kind of lacking. And this also goes to saying to what I kind of declare, the affirmation I made in the beginning of the video, that the information is the smallest part of communication. Whether the 738-55 rule is exact to the number, whether it's 10% of information that is important or whether it's 5%, it's nonetheless, it's a ridiculously small part of the whole communication process. People also, new clients, people that want to get into acting, sometimes ask me, how do you do that? They are the thing they're mostly afraid of in the beginning is memorizing the lines, as if that's the most important part, right? It's like, how do you do that with memorizing your lines? Isn't that complicated? I mean, what kind of techniques? It's like, dude, chill, relax. That's like the part that is the least important. There are great techniques to memorize the lines quickly, but it's not important. It's like, and for the external kind of observer, before he gets into the business, that seems to be like the greatest thing, to memorize the lines. But it's actually to kind of fire them up, to interpret them, to give them life, passion, and controversy and contrast. That's what's the amazing part. It's not memorizing themselves, right? So therefore, yes, unfortunately, the content itself is really not that good, right? It could be of higher quality. Definitely, it's a blame me, blame you type of game. But there's definitely, I feel, a lot to take away from this, a lot.
And destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to
he opened
immigration
up and gets
later
back
in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America.
What? 1,000 trillionaires?
I mean, billionaires in America.
Right.
And what,
1,000 trillionaires. I mean, billionaires.
It's happening. They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2.
So we have the accusator, the blamer, and not even well performed. It's a bit of a shaky blamer. I'm sorry, Joe, right? It's not really, it's not a powerful indication, right? It's kind of a shaky blamer. Yes, he gets it up there. Finally, he kind of, does something physically because he gets, directly attacked by Trump. And so I think he feels the need to do something a bit more important for his standards. And if that more important thing was that little shaky accusator thing that he was the blamer that he was putting up there, it's of course not a lot, right? Still, he kind of gained back his control a little bit. I feel he kind of has more accountability over his rate, right? So that is coming back, or at least it seems to be here for a while, a bit more stable than in the answer that he had beforehand. It's just you realize how shaky that is, right? What he's doing here, and it's sort of surviving more than thriving. That's unfortunate. Yes.
% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person
okay, he's putting the leveler up there. Okay, he's now moving both hands at the same time. He kind of missed a couple of lines and he fumbled there, but at least he saved it very well. But he's not sure about his numbers, right? He's when it's about numbers, he's constantly insecure and he's blinking a lot. He's trying to kind of sneak into the number more than really kind of, controlling the memory of the number, of the actual number that he has to reproduce. And he's always trying to kind of wing it a little bit. And that of course doesn't really help, to propel his message.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with look.
Bam. This is 12 minutes in, and that's a freeze, ladies and gentlemen. That's how a brain freeze looks, right? It's a small one. It's not like a huge one, the term seems very dramatic and you expect people to completely collapse. But this is the posture, the voice, the tone, security, speech, content, everything was imploding like WTC, right? September 11th, free fall, kind of That's a little, yes, oh my God. That's a little brain freeze right there, ladies and gentlemen. But hey, guys, again, I'm not doing this to denigrate someone, to make fun of someone, or to give someone the right and the other one not the right. It's very interesting stuff we're studying here. This is high class material being brought to us live and direct, for no money at all. So there's definitely a lot to take away from here. Really study and improve your skills and kind of understand how certain psychological things work out and what gesture triggers what and what's the intention behind it. Super interesting stuff. It's not about to laugh about someone. He has proposed this debate. He is the president of the United States. He needs to face his adversaries. He definitely has to go into debate. This is his job. He gets paid for, and there are a lot of beautiful privileges that go also into making this job. So definitely this is what he has to go through, and we get the chance to analyze that as it should be. Future boy, charisma wins elections for sure. Obama won twice because he's a great speaker. Yeah, he's okay speaker. He's not great, but he has a good, definitely has charisma. Yes. Hillary lost because she has zero charisma for sure. Let's not go there. Trump won in 2016 because he was fun. Yeah, absolutely. And, you can apply this to so many other politicians. Berlusconi, also in the South American, array, but also Boris Johnson. It was like some sort of a weird Jeff Dunham ventriloquist puppet version of Donald Trump. I feel incredible, right? So being funny definitely helps. Yeah, give me the feeling, absolutely. Yeah, Pat Brad says Trump definitely picked up on that. I mean, it was obviously a freeze. I stopped watching at this point because it felt embarrassing. Yeah, he picked up on that. It's incredible. Like, what you're saying is 100% true. It's like, look at him. And like, aha, here we are, good boy, right? Yeah, it's a total and complete freeze. Yes, I agree, Ravenwolf. Bill Clinton was a great speaker. Yes, he was also a musician. You know, musicians or hobby musicians, you know, usually, you know, they have groove, they have melody, they have a sense for rhythm. So they have already a lot of innate or trained abilities that definitely also part of a great speaking in performance, for sure.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President.
Yeah, he was, look at his, like, I'm so happy. You know, I remembered a term and I can attach, like, you know, I can engulf this one term with this, you know, a couple of words in order to make it like more or less a functional sentence. It's that's not a good sign, unfortunately, right? This is more or less desperation. It was a total freeze. And then for him, it's a win. You can see that he's proud of himself, that he came back from that. He's pretty proud. Look how determined it is. He's almost smirking here a little bit, right? Oh, I showed this guy because I remember Medicare, but the way he got there, as if it's the last harbor of, you know, mental access, is definitely not a positive thing. Again, 12 minutes in, and he already had a couple of significant hiccups here and there, a couple of not really understandable affirmations, a couple of things he said. But this is like a major collapse here. This is one of the big, yes.
Biden, President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're
interesting, right? He's like, the way he's acknowledged. I think, I don't know if Trump is I believe he's in, you know, he built casinos. So so for me, definitely there must be also an inclination for him to play games, right? And to jackpot and poker. I believe he's a great golf player as well. He definitely also plays poker, right? I can imagine him doing that at least. I don't have like certain confirmation of that, but he's a billionaire, you know, so he's a player. He's a chess player in his field. And the way he just looked to Biden when Biden had his first collapse and he's still looking down, which is, again, not a good sign to do. He's trying to kind of, you know, get all his strength and kind of speeding him up himself a little bit too. But the way he acknowledged that was immaculate. This is how someone realizes that he has won a major point in a fight, right? And it's clear his posture, he's blowing up, he's way more secure. He's almost he is back almost to his old raconteur pose, right, that he has sometimes. And now he's bringing in the leveler again, right, just to show that I'm competitive, but I'm also competent. So, you know, that's definitely a big win.
Putting them on Medicare, they're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he...
Yeah, Biden is in between listening, recollecting, regathering, but it still is not completely hunched over like before, but still, right? I mean, this is something that it's more and more his posture kind of emanates insecurity, fragility, and weakness. Yes, definitely. Trump is a continuous display of leveler, accusator, blamer, all these, right? He's using them, right, in a constant flow. But yeah, he has a good rate. He seems to be very confident about what he's saying, and so far, yeah, definitely he's gaining the upper hand here.
He was right in the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. what we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Interesting now that he's bringing other countries in, is making it a bit more emotional, a bit more visceral. Again, leveler, open palms, accusator or blamer coming in a nice display very quickly. It doesn't seem forced. It's natural demeanor. Therefore, it's a good gesture. He could avoid it a couple of times. It's too often for my gusto, right? But definitely he operates smoothly. He knows what he's doing. He's more serious now. Now he's bringing it also more to an emotional level. He's involving other people he's friends with, right? So he's kind of talking about another community that's judging about their community. It's a strong game. He's expanding the frame at 12 minutes. Yeah, I think it's smart to do it at this point. Kind of they ran through bullet points, a couple of checked facts that will be checked later, of course, and they know it. They ran a couple of numbers and statistics, and now they're expanding the frame. Now they're going into, of course, the subject to foreign policy and all that. So therefore, that's pretty smart to insert it at this point. And he's done it also quite flawlessly.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case.
Just want to say really quick on how especially she is trying to avoid any type of emotionality in her tonality when she's asking the questions. It's very monotone. I guess, I mean, I know this because CNN is regarded as a communication hub and system that is leaning towards Biden more than it's leaning towards Trump. So therefore, I guess for the sake of not appearing as biased in any way, they try to eliminate any tonality from the voice. This is definitely trained. This is very strict. She's trying to kind of avoid any type of emotional field in her voice in order to not kind of let people that are maybe tuning in and neutral observers not to reveal where the agency's actually leaning towards to, or what the personal tendencies are. Very interesting.
Temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills.
Very clear, slow rate, but clear rate. It's an effective rate, right? She wants slow rates can be good. I mean, I would never recommend. I'm a high rate speaker. I admit that. I'm sorry. Okay, just place the money on the table. I will look away. Don't worry. Yes, I'm a fast speaker. Okay. But that doesn't mean that fast speaking always wins. Quite the contrary. If you're too fast and you're fumbling, or you're not recognizable and not effective, and you're not bringing the points across, then you seem as incompetent as a too slow speaker, right? But to have an educated, more conservative rate, and you're speaking like she's speaking like a newscast would speak in the 80s, I believe. It's very slow paced, but nonetheless, there's authority behind it because she takes nice little beats. She has a very well educated voice. She's trying to control the emotions, so she's delivering the packages. It's not really emotional, not really enticing, but it gives authority and competence. That's for sure. So yeah, like technical wise, she's it's interesting how she delivers, and definitely very competent professional.
They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that. And
open palms, I agree. I'm Jesus, the placitor.
I will not block it. And
I will not block it. I'm leveler, right? I'm Vishnu. I'm in consensus. I'm trying to equilibrate, and then now I precise something.
If you look at this whole question that you're asking,
you see, if you look at this whole question, right, he's pointing something out. So that's the precisioner. I don't know how to call this. It's actually my definition for it. But yeah, it's just like a lens, right? You want to point out a detail.
Complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other.
Now, what we see here again, the way he looks, it's not very confident. He's looking at his side. He has more question on his mind than answers. He's just ready to release a statement, but the overall look and the posture here, at least when he's not speaking, he could be a bit more like whether stoic like Trump did or slightly more humorous. Now he's looking down again. Yes, here he's listening. It's not bad. He's shaking, or is he pre-enunciating an opinion? He's showing already that is in discord with something that wasn't bad, but overall his look seems a bit lost.
But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart, but you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical, because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
It was interesting that for this very now, whenever he gets emotional, right, he shifted his gesture for a while to this left side to kind of, put the connection directly to Biden, because he knew from the camera angle how it will work. And then he kind of shifted it back to his right hand, to his usual enunciating hand.
And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks.
Interesting again how Trump tries to stay as stoic as possible, not to look over, not to get enraged. He looks a little bit down, but his overall posture is very upfront, upright. Interesting. Here Biden tries to kind of, chive in with this emotional debate. I know there's a lot dependent, it's a very, controversial, very critical part also of the campaign. He knows that's important. He's putting in anger, right? He's putting in his hands. They're a bit shaky though, but he's trying to level them up at least to kind of show defense here for his argument. He's protecting his argument. He wants to make sure that this is his argument. It's really central to him. And he wants to make sure to kind of block Biden, to block Trump out here on this. Truly interesting how the subconscious work. Now he intersects immediately after he finished. And the way he turns around, Biden turns around, is, again, he could have done that a bit slower and a bit more authoritarian. He just reacted, and he seems again a bit lost when Trump is taking over the response. Let's hear what they have to say.
As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But
interesting, here, I really want to quickly point out that he has very interesting ways which frankly, so he kind of inserts a thought, a commentary, a self-analysis. This is super, super important, guys. This is also what happens to, we can run this, let this run a little bit. I explain this. So when you have a text, whether that's an actor or a communicator, whatever you have there are certain passages of the text that are commentary. It's just your thought. It's not like an objective truth or something that is, it's your commentary on it. That's part of the text. So you want to make sure that you kind of detach that commentary from the usual flow of your narration. So it is clear that it stands out as your own opinion. To do that, you have whether to learn the text, or if you wing it and you improvise it, then you have to make sure to be very fast on kind of realizing, okay, this is my comment. I want to highlight this differently, and then get back to the previous flow of my tonality of my argument, what I was just exposing, explaining, or kind of exemplifying there, which in a way shows also mental flexibility. If you do this in an improvised way, and I believe Trump improvised his answers here most of the time, there were, of course, he had bullet points, of course he was coached, but it seems like that he somehow he was rather spontaneous with this, and he kind of winged it, and which makes it even more interesting, right? That he highlights these different segments of responses in different ways. what it does is it creates range in your voice. It creates tonality. It creates also some sort of a harmony. Granted, it's not the most beautiful harmony in the world, allora, but it is harmony, at least for your counterpart's brain. And that's super important. There is some oscillation going on. Otherwise, it gets boring. It gets monotone. This is something that Biden is definitely missing. You know, comments, reflections, own little, you know, technical disputes that he has in the overall, in the overarching narration of the response that he's posing, right? You need those things in order to come across a little bit more vital, a little bit more alive, a little bit full of color. And this is definitely also something that you know, delivers more authenticity. Whether you like what you hear or not, it kind of delivers more authenticity if the person that is saying that different, you know, uses, you know, different oscillations and differentiates the colors of his replies inside of a sentence in a couple of ways, of course, without getting too crazy. Otherwise, you have Louis de Funès. You don't want to go up and down. Oh, mon Dieu, what's that? No, you don't want to do that. That's, of course, a charade. But if you have nice intentional oscillations like these, where we're talking about comments, this is, you know, when you have a text, you look at your comments, make sure that you have different voices in order to kind of highlight them. So for the perceiver, for the one who's listening to you, even when the act is finished, right, melody creates memory, remember, he can then remember better what he just perceived, and the better he can remember you, the longer of a career you will have.
In the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true.
Okay, here we have accusator, blamer with a very strong, of course, sentence, you are lying. This is simply not true. Interesting. That's a good entrance, right? It's a good way to disrupt an authoritarian frame.
The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative measures on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board, at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants.
That was good. That was, you know, acceptable to a certain point, but it was definitely better. Biden, you can clearly tell that was like a huge centerpiece of his preparation that he kind of went through in Camp David with his coaches for a week straight. They had to kind of, you know, make sure that this was like kind of hammered in and chiseled in. And so you could tell that that was you know, something that he could very well remember. He was, trying to juggle a little bit here and there with the numbers. I'm not really sure if that's like a cohesive line that would be, you know, needed to be double checked. But like just from the analysis standpoint of how he came across there definitely was a better return there. Now, there's a thing to say. Of course, when you repeat a thing, you're a liar, or period, that comes across as weak. If you have to reinforce by, you know, kind of replicating it over and over again, that is not a good statement for your authority. If you can just let things, you know, let them stand still, make a pause, don't repeat it twice or thrice. It doesn't underline your competence at all. You just say it once and then you look into the camera, you just wait for the emotional response that will hit your audience, that you know will hit the audience, and let it just breathe. God damn it, just let it breathe for a second, right? As a public speaker, as a communicator, as an actor, as a, you know, an announcer, whatever, let the lines breathe. Bach famously once said, when he was asked by Friedrich von Preußen, right? It was the king of Prussia. It was invited to his throne because Emanuel, his son, was actually one of the choir directors of the imperial choir, right? And so Johann then, traveled to Berlin, and then he was asked by Friedrich, like, how is it that your music is so genius? How do you create the sounds? What creates these amazing, sounds? And he said, the pause creates the sound. It's the space that lets music resonate and revibrate. It's between one note and the other that the magic is created. It's not hitting the note, but knowing exactly what time should pass between one and the other note. It's that time in between, that space in between, that creates the actual magic of the sound, not the sound itself. And that kind of blew me away. There is a book, Escher, Gödel, and Bach, I think. It's like 700 pages. I can really claim that I've completely understood everything that is told in this book. It's truly complicated. It's about math also. But there is a section about Bach and his music, and where they talk extensively about how it's constructed, how it's almost like architecture. And this is why I call, some of the parts of my course also the Cathedral of Success, because I believe a good vocal image and a great visual language are the architecture of success, are your cathedral of success for a great interpretation. So Pat says, some things like abortion should be compassionately, not aggressively defended. I think Biden's debate team screwed that one up. Yeah, I mean, they tried to give him a little bit more importance. They tried to give him a little bit more presence there. But sure, like you said, there is no tonality, there is no harmony, there are no oscillations.
Have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states.
Now we get to the immigrants. Let's see what's happening.
Some cases causing real safety and security concerns.
I got a green card, by the way, okay? I'm an artist. It's an EB1 green card, okay?
Because we worked
I'm not illegal, right? I'm a Sicilian. I grew up in Germany. I spent a lot of money traveling to the U.S. over the Mexican border. No, I mean, it's a regular border cross, right? I got a real green card.
Border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. And
that I know is not true, and that's not good, right? That's a huge lie right there. I know that for a fact that is not true. So it's interesting that such an important argument starts with such a clear and blatant lie. But of course, I mean, we should be used to it. Otherwise, so la la, a bit shaky, to be honest, right?
In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies.
Again, it's incredible that none of these responses, also from, I think Trump was the only one that kind of started talking about more of a collective view, but otherwise it's like blaming each other until, to the nemesis of your senses, right? And to annihilation, right? Let's blame ourselves into the ground until we can't breathe anymore. That's a bit boring, right? This blaming massacre here. I mean, I get the political game, but there's so many ways of formulating things and kind of, smartly on, kind of telling stuff that could be also funny without necessarily saying it's his fault, right? It's so infantile, right? From a conversational standpoint. I mean, it's just not what adults should do. Blame each other all the time, pointing at each other. It's not good communication at all. Not a great nonverbal value. It's not a great expression. Now he's taking up the pen. He's trying to hold that to be professional, because the pen always kind of speaks for professionality.
I don't think he knows what he said either. Look,
that's the famous line where he said something in the end that didn't make any sense. Okay, should we watch that again, like really quickly, just to kind of assess that live and direct over here at the COACHMC studio? Let's see.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said.
To solve this crisis.
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened, I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
Oh yeah, there was like a half collapse there. It's yeah, it's another freeze. It's oh, it's incredible. Yeah. That was another. I see him. That was crazy. Stop taking jobs, coach. Yes, I know. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, there was a bit of a collapse there too. So we're in 21 minutes. So the first one was after 12 minutes. Now it's happening after 9. That was a massive derail. Definitely kind of lost train of thought, argument, everything. Not well. Insecurity in the voice, no volume, no tonality. It's really dark. It's really dark in there. Yeah, unfortunately, yes, but it's not really convincing. And that was a major freeze, definitely.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of the sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Yes, and look at this expression. Of course, he feels indignated, right? He feels offended. Instead of feeling offended, right, you should say less things, but them, you should say them clearer instead of inserting, types of information that are also not necessary to be disclosed in order to make a valid argument, right? And then he completely screwed up. Definitely the part wasn't prepared that bad. He kind of had a couple of points there, but hey, we are always, guys, this is, it's always on the edge, on the verge of completely collapse. And this is like a demonstration of incapability that is, yeah, it's quite dramatic. It's a display of utter helplessness, in my opinion, right? Also, this look here of indignation and lostness and, oh, you offended me. And this is almost like not realizing what he just done there for the second time.
We had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists.
Again, he's looking down way too much. Yeah, his listening is better filled. Now he's trying to come back. He's opening up his posture. That's definitely better. It's some sign of vitality. But yeah, in terms of how this guy here is there, he's poised, he's cool. He's actually, again, I'm pretty surprised. Again, most of my life, I just watched this guy from the outside. I'm a kid from the 70s, so I saw him already in some movies and some spots, and I always figured, this Trump thing. And one of the buildings when I first came here to the US, it was 97. That was my first time hitting also New York City, so I was definitely excited also to hit Trump Tower. And I was this larger than life figure, right? This is always my impression of him. That was my impression of him. Some sort of a bit of a better Berlusconi here in the US, but here he's very statesman-like. He's very stoic. He's really listening. He's not showing his cards. He's not showing his emotions too much. He's point after point kind of just stating the facts that he claims or he thinks or he believes to be true. And he's composed, he's poised, pretty safe. He has no major slip-ups on his count. And yeah, he's absolutely there. It's not fantastic in terms of communication and presentation. Definitely, it could be slightly funnier or slightly, just a bit more, I don't know, spirited in a way. But it doesn't need to be. Or it's a presidential debate, and for that, he's definitely earning his points right now.
American soldiers, killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration.
Yeah, he's showing some emotions there. There we finally find like some disgust and some apathy and some content there. Yeah, for sure.
undocumented immigrant in America,
Slightly aggressive also in that expression.
whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with a bad water.
Yeah, that was not a good serving from Biden. Yeah, he should have avoided that type of information because, yeah, it was played as a win in the past and it will be played as a win in the present as well. So that wasn't a good idea strategically wise. And he probably knows that right now. He just turned his back on that.
Insane and very stupid policies. People are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our.
Yeah, it wasn't the best joke or the best word in coination that we witnessed so far in this universe, but it's okay. He is not here to deliver jokes. It's refreshingly so. I mean, he's straightforward. He's delivering facts. He has an idea of what he wants to say, but he's very. I mean, he seems to be slightly tired, but overall, it doesn't really shine. He doesn't really come across as being a tired man or a fragile man or an old man. He's just giving his good routine, and that's already enough to win it. So that shows way more authority than anything else. Bruce Lee once said, it's not the warrior that barks the loudest that is the best later on in the fight, right? Because only a fool could consider a victory showing off before battle. That means that it is the composed warrior, the one that is controlled, the one that is listening, that the one that is just relying on his skills, on his training, that most of the time will win the battle. And therefore, the controlled warrior is way more to be feared than the loud warrior, than the barking warrior. And I think this is the strategy that, Trump somehow applies also here.
Mike.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example.
Yeah, this is a reoccurring theme now. He's starting, everything is a lie, everything is a lie, like kind of throwing it back immediately. Good that he said that and he changed his posture, took the pen in his right hand and kind of pointed it towards him. He wants to reflect it back to him. Definitely, yes, this is how you should do it in terms of, nonverbal communication. But of course, the quality of the voice is not the best. He's cracking up and is not really hitting Trump that seemed to just absorb everything tonight.
And I spoke about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken.
Yes, for the second time, Biden brought something up that Trump immediately used, and his team should have, advised him to do better because you don't serve your adversary who is also more skilled and more authoritarian with his voice, with his vocal image. You don't serve him on a silver platter arguments that he could easily use against you. You don't want to make those types of mistakes if you're not settled 100% about the information that you're giving out, and the opponent potentially could turn this argument in his favor and against you. I mean, hypothetically, you can do this with almost every argument, but you should be very aware that this is happening now 2 times in a very rapid sequence, like with a couple of minutes just in between. And that shows me that, maybe Biden is losing a little bit of the concentration here. You don't want to open up your flanks, in a debate in such a way where, your opponent can gain those easy points. I'm not talking about some points that may come over the course of a longer debate, of a longer dialogue. Sometimes you can, and that's totally fine. Also, what I advise my clients sometimes is like, when you have a negotiation and quote unquote, people see that whole thing sometimes as a, as a war, as winning or losing. And you want to see it like that to kind of open up, kind of firing up your competitive juices. That's all fine. That's all okay. You can see it. And sometimes we do that for motivational reasons. But the problem here is if you kind of, exercise this a little bit too much, you get too obsessive of winning and losing and these dualistic concepts. What you get is you get a bit stiff, right? And so therefore you start making a personal point out of that argument, take it personally, get a bit too emotionally involved, and that sorts of kind of rubs off on you, and you kind of come across as a little bit too nervous and too touched by it, like what we've seen right now with Biden. So you want to make sure that when stuff like this happens, that you kind of get back to your old stream, to your old flow. You don't want to get lost in that type of, personal entanglement, because otherwise you lose control over what you want to say, and also over your believability, because you're derailed emotionally, right? And so people can't really follow you anymore.
Better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up.
Yeah, his look is priceless on the right.
It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation.
He seems like, honestly, just asking himself where he is right now.
Disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
A 4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families, and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
I'm not sure that's right. I can fact check that. It's nice how he has that aggressive tone. He tries to insert a little bit of assertiveness, a little bit more of stern demeanor, and try to kind of come in and gain some points at least on that. But of course, the force is not really there. But at least he tries to display it mimic-wise. It is super, super interesting, right? What we're seeing and what we're witnessing right now. It's that display of human behavior. What I feel is a little bit sad is that, again, it's whether it's personal or it's completely unpersonal and totally exaggerated. So there is no real contribution and conversation. It's kind of, back and forth with accusations and making it about statements and not statements, and kind of starting with the assumption that one field is bad or an evil and the other field is good and just fantastic, as to me is not a very, healthy and also proactive way in order to have a debate like that, right? Because it can never be mutual. It's always one-sided.
With Afghanistan, it was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned, and so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine, never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business.
And interesting how he's now, taken in a further range. Again, he is the one always calling in the other troops, right? Trump is always referring to other friends, to other situations, to other scenarios that never would have happened. He's taken in foreign policies. He's way, way larger in the address of things, where sometimes I feel Biden is too narrow-minded and too niche, right? It's just him, where Trump kind of paints a bit of a bigger picture here, tries to bring in more countries to give to raise this debate out of this out of the studio, out of a bit more of a global scale, and kind of bring in other policies, other interests in the home. He kind of relates to that. It's definitely interesting. It's a good move. He kind of deviates from the topic. It's always a great move from the kind of, if you wanna, if you feel like, okay, we've exhausted one topic or I talked enough about it, and you just want to go into the different direction, just get what other people want and think from you into the topic. It's always a great it's a great way to kind of find a segue to new arguments, to kind of deviate a little bit from the pressure, and to find new loopholes, new openings in the pockets of conversation with your counterpart. So that's the second time he's doing it like actively like this, also changing his posture at the same time. It's good that he brings that dynamic in, and he has now a wider optic, a wider spectrum, a wider view on the whole concept again. So he's opening and closing the frame quite harmoniously. I mean, it's not perfect, guys. Of course, this is all, all improvable on all levels. But we're trying to kind of deduct the weapons here, what they're doing strategically and psychologically in order to kind of use them, and understanding how communication works on such a level.
With them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine,
better. Now he's using numerics, and he's pretty ardent. It's good how he kind of follows up. Right now he has a better moment. He's recuperating a little bit from the initial blast, and now you can see also with the wrinkles on his forehead, right? Like, he want to emphasize this, how important it is, and he feels good about it. He's open up his hand, he's leveling open palms. Right now he's at his height of his confidence for this debate so far.
Thousands and thousands of troops. 500,000 troops.
President Trump, I'm going to come back to you for 1 minute. I just want to go back to my original question.
Again, Biden is placing his delivery, the emphasis of his delivery, and how he wants to attack the sentences on two main, very easy to follow strategies. With your own delivery, have a good rate more than quality and volume and tonality. Just, focus more on rate, on rhythm, on pace, and try to denounce as much as you can, try to deviate as much as you can, and try to kind of, devalue the argument by just saying that is a lie. These are the 2/3 basic principles, so far of what Biden is displaying in this presidential debate. It's working so la. Again, your rate can be super good, but if your rate is super good and you are very quiet, but if your rate is good and you're super quiet and fragile, but if your rate is, what I mean is, like, your rate can be good, but if it's not followed by volume and intensity and passion and tonality, then even the best rate it doesn't save your speech. Of course, there is not much to do. So I guess all these coaches, these advisors, all these teachers that worked with Biden in this preparational week in Camp David, they tried to kind of squeeze out the best juices, and this is the best what they could come up with. When I heard the first reaction, I saw this the first time, just with my side eye, without really watching the debate for the show and kind of analyzing it. And I have to say, I I was, of course, surprised a little bit and shattered at the same time that they could allow, you know, this to happen in such a way where you feel like it's almost a shame, because it's so clear and evident that there is one person here, part of the debate, whose, you know, whose cognitive abilities are, you know, sometimes stronger, sometimes, you know, a bit weaker. But, you know, in the display of 30 minutes with such oscillations, of course, it's not the best picture that you paint. I'm not saying it's completely horrible and terrible like I thought it would be the first time when I watched it, but it's of course, you know, given to the position that you have to fulfill and the expectations that, you know, the people, the world, and everyone else has in you, and having the incredible responsibility of leading 400 million, you know, citizens, that is, of course, not an acceptable standard. I mean, that goes without saying. Not to criticize him personally, not because this person to me or the flag or the color or the party, I'm not endorsing it, just from a communicational acting standpoint, right? There's so much missing. So I don't know what they really prepared besides, you know, the rhythm of the speech, but they should have prepared shorter sentences, a bit better explanations. He tried to insert a couple of jokes, but that wasn't really necessary. But just to be more authoritarian, he is the one who's in charge. The other one is actually attacking the bastion. So he should be actually the defendant of his cause, but he seems to be the aggressor, the attacker. He tries to kind of, you know, gain meters back as if, and that's what psychologically is shown, he feels like the already established loser. And that is a bad thing in communication. If you come across as needy, if you come across as helpless, if you come across as already being the established loser of this conversation, there is no way all your tactics, strategies, and training previously will save the day. If you don't believe it, you don't have the authority. That's why the volume is also missing with Biden, because usually speakers, profilers, FBI profilers, they talk about this like extensively. There's also a great book on the matter, Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss, exceptional book, exceptional guy. Also the Black Swan group, check him out. He will teach you so much. This book is immense, really. You can learn so much from it. And, you know, when volume is missing, belief is missing also because you don't really acknowledge it to be true. And so the thing here is that most people, most speakers, most communicators initially believe that, you know, belief, you know, I'm sorry for this play of word, that belief comes from the heart. That you have to speak from the heart, that belief is somehow connected to the heart, and everything that is from here will be also believable. That's not necessarily true, though. What comes from the heart is the courage to step in. So that is the commitment to open yourself up, to be also vulnerable, and to be, you know, out there in the moment, and to face whatever consequence of that decision of yours to step into the entertainment ring. But the belief, whatever training you go through, whether it's Shaolin or there's fine arts, the belief doesn't come from the heart. That is just the commitment. That is just the courage. It's mama courage, le cœur. That's French. That's il cuore in Italian, right? That's the pumping core. But it's not belief. Belief doesn't stem off the heart. It comes from our pattern recognition. And that's the problem here. Because if you don't have pattern recognition, you don't have mental incubation, which leads to an effective pattern recognition, which leads to intelligence, because intelligence stratifies your memory. It lets you remember what worked and what not. And that remembering what worked and what not process fortifies belief, believe it or not. This is why, and I say this so many times also during my other, you know, sessions online here with you guys, the thing that sometimes we get caught up nowadays, and this is like a fresh trend, a fairly young trend, to look for the purpose, to look for the why. You know, look out for what you think you're made for, and this is how it will pay the bill. Because if your hobby becomes your job, then you will never, you know, kind of look at it as a job. That's not true. Now, first of all, let me tell you, that's not true. Of course, a job is a job. Whether that's your hobby that you turn into in your everyday monetization, or it's another job that you acquire. A job will always be painful, even if you love the topic you're working about. Probably even more so because you love it, so you feel the pain. So the pattern recognition is what kind of animates elements, right, and charges the belief. So therefore, instead of looking for the purpose, look for the action. Be verbal, be a verb. As an actor, as a performer, as a communicator, as a magician, as an illusionist, as someone who's a creative, right? It is the action that determines whether or not you learn. If you learn, that means you failed. That's great. If you didn't learn, then it was a success. That's great. So it's both great, you see? So the action lets you realize what works, what needs to be improved. By fixing, you have mental incubation. By fixing what didn't work, you have the mental incubation process before, because you want to figure out how to get there. And through that, and then by repeating and implementing and kind of realizing that now it works, now our brain archives that as a complete pattern recognition. And that solidifies belief. So the action solidifies belief, and that reinforces my purpose. It's not my purpose that solidifies belief. That's pure nonsense. It's nice on a stage. It sells books, but it's not actionable because it has nothing to do with action. It's like searching for your identity. And we have this with woke. We have this perfect argument. It's like, oh, sure, I can choose my identity. Yeah, but that doesn't reinforce anything because it's not coming out of a result. It's not coming out of an action. You can think of your identity, sure. You can think of your purpose, sure. But that won't do nothing for you. You can think forever for your purpose, over your purpose, finding your purpose. You can think forever over your identity, your sexualization, your faith, but that won't bring you anything. It's practicing a faith. So getting the pattern recognition in that reinforces the belief, not the courage that lets you to the commitment. It's the consistency that closes the cycle of work that lets you realize your value. I hope that is clear. Because it's truly important to understand. In communication and acting and art in general, it's absolutely fundamental to get this part right. Don't look for your purpose. It's wasting your time. You can look for your entire life. You can study for your entire life. That doesn't lead to anything. Do something. Put it into action. Be actionable. Be a verb. Be active. Be dynamic. Be of service. And immediately when you start of being of service, you reinforce your belief because you realize what works. And that gives you purpose. Something that makes you feel good gives you purpose. You will continue you kind of repeat that, and more purpose will grow out of that repetition. But it's repetition because it's pattern recognition. So my rant is over. Let's welcome everybody to the rent-free zone of Groom to Be, or How I Like My Tea. Another public service announcement by the COACHMC studio. Ding! Smash the like button. Ding, 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 ding. Right now.
Question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because...
Yes. Social media was made for renting, that's for sure. Yes. And I wonder if all the court taught Trump to control himself. Yes, all the court, maybe yes. Also, you mean the trials and everything? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's definitely coming out of a period where he was trained to control himself. That's for sure. Yeah, he had exercise and kind of, maintaining his horses, keeping his horses.
If in fact he does what he says and walks away. And by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still...
Really interesting. She's keeping her rhythm. She's keeping that non-tonality, that exclusion of emotion out of her voice quite consistently. And yeah, she's really determined about it. Oh, it's interesting.
Still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council.
That was not good. I'm sorry to interrupt right here. Yeah, you don't want to make sure that when you place a number, you have a mental gap or, a vocal inconsistency or just a fumbling of repetition letters, whatever it is. You want to make sure to exclude that, because otherwise you kind of devaluate immediately the construct of your argument.
Straight through to the G7, to the Israelis, and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which is...
Yes, and now he's kind of repeating it in order to fortifying himself. Like, this is giving him self-confidence. You can see his eyebrows are up. He's very tense in this moment. He's trying to focus hardcore to deliver this well, because he knows he kind of screwed up there in the beginning, and was make sure that he wants to exclude any type of fumbling in the in the course of the rest of the sentence. You can fumble once, people excuse that, even though in the beginning that was really harsh, was a major one. But if you do it a couple of times during the same sentence, that kind of brings everything down. So you want to make sure to avoid any type of further mistake. If there is a mistake happening, hey, we're all human beings, right? Well, some of us are. No, but seriously, we're all human beings. We can all slip up. We can all fumble. We can all make a mistake. Even, in the greatest presentation. I've seen this so many times, like even historical, screw ups. I mean, it happens, right? Just stand with it, smile about it, show humor. It's okay. Nobody expects you to be perfect, right? But don't insist doing it, and then maybe in the course of doing that, getting too personal, too egoistical, is like, no, I have to show them, and then you lose the mission of transmitting something beautiful, right? You lose the mission of your information, then it gets personal, your ego gets caught up, and this is most likely the point where we screw up again, where we make the second mistake, and then the sentence is gone. So you want to make sure that if it happens once, breathe out, use some internal humor, don't get over tense like in this case, and just try to bring it home. Maybe you slow down your rate, make sure that you come across a bit more believable through your volume, or you add a little thing like a breather or a pause, but make sure to kind of recuperate as soon as possible without hasting and bring it home safely.
3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic.
Yes,
Israel.
the accusator.
No one was hurt. No, one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are two different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second.
Yeah, not bad. Definitely. Like he brought the sentence home like I expected him to do, because after his major slip up in the beginning of this reply, of course, he was hyperly focused. Nonetheless, there were a couple of fumbles here and there. The voice is, of course, what it is. We don't need to discuss it once again. He seems to believe what he says. That's truly important. But of course, the statement is in itself a bit weak, because for his levels that he's demonstrated tonight, that was actually quite acceptable. But of course, it's not enough to convince.
We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General.
He looks again super lost on the right.
They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President
so
Biden,
that was one of the old Trumps, right? That we saw here. That was like a slightly buffoonish, controversy, overreaching, bizarre type of, kind of example that you take here to paint the picture. Yes, that was the first one after how many minutes? 36 minutes. So he took on himself, right. Maybe it's like Pat said, the court cases, for sure. If you're going through so much beating and so much accusation, and you are being solely, put on the magnifying lens, and we know the tendency is not pro-Trump, right? Like the overall, kind of ambience when he goes to these interviews. So definitely he's gone through a lot of pressure recently, I believe, and the court cases and, the education that he needs to demonstrate there in order to kind of reflect the statesmanship that he self, kind of claims for himself. That needs to be done, right? My Cubano friend, thank you for sharing, Coach. My Cubano friend, what's up with the Cuban thing, John Doe? What's up? I'm everybody's. No, I'm not everybody's fan. That's not true. I think I'm just admirer of the cultures, and I respect and admire cultures, and I study them, and every culture has something unique and something interesting. That's what I love about it. So I'm not necessarily a friend of every culture, but I'm a friend of exploration, that's for sure, and discoveries. I'm a curious guy, and so therefore, yes, and the Cuban culture. I mean, if you live in Miami and you're not good with Cuban culture, you should live somewhere else. Honestly, it's really like that. It comes down to that, because Cuba is such an influential part and such a huge part of the fabric of the cultural, of the psychological, of the of the business, fabric of this town called Miami, of this crazy town called also Miami Beach. Cuba is so influential for the southern part of Florida, and it's so interwoven with the history here. And so therefore, if you rebuke and refute that, there is no need for you to come down here. Stay away. It's hot and humid anyway. It's hot and humid down here. It's really hot and really humid and really hot. See you tomorrow, John Doe. See you tomorrow. Indeed, we have, of course, the beautiful 3 Sages in a Time Machine Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a crazy, beautiful stream also there with Ryan Roger Essay and Dragon Slayer commentaries. Let's close this up really quick. Let's look at the last argument. that I found really interesting here. And let's kind of get to a closing of the show. I think we've extracted a lot, but I just want to give you that.
I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. The whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call them, to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And
I'm not sure why Biden is laughing here, because he wants kind of devalue his argument. Is like it's clearly that he's capable of doing it. So I don't know.
Quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the.
Is he like genuinely laughing about the joke? I don't know.
And hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's...
Interesting how he said ace them, right? This aggressive, assertive, I ace them, right? He wants to make sure that it's clear, and good inflection there. Very strong. Interesting.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're... Anyway, just take a look at...
What?
Look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president.
It's very personal. Look at his eyebrows.
And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you.
Now he's turning around. Now he's active. When it's personal, it's super interesting.
He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
He can't stop.
But I have, you know how many...
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Now, finally, we get like a shrapnel of a light, of a furuncle of the grain of a sand dust corn of conception, what an actual Joe Biden alive could produce, and not this copy that we have seen for 120 minutes here, for 84 minutes here. I'm sorry. 1 hour and 24 minutes. Now he's alive. Now he's turning, he's raising his eyebrows, he's conceptual, he's laughing, he's active, right? Because it's about him. Now he finally believes what he's saying. Now he's really enticed and entangled personally. It's something that he really cares about. It's golf, right? His cognitive reassemblance is there after 84 minutes when they're talking about golf, because it's somehow personal. It somehow reflects something that, pattern recognition. Again, it's all about belief, what I said before. Truly fascinating that now he popped up.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern that
You're a child. That was almost sweet. Yeah, you're a child.
voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made...
They're coming back now to January 6th, okay, I'm sure. Interesting. She kind of preserved that constant, de-emotionalized voice, right, through the whole debate. She didn't want to kind of give out any, not the slightest type of hint to like where she was leaning towards to, or where she was leaning into, or what she was believing, or what was more favorable to her. She really like exercised this discipline kind of behavior, emotional behavior, by concealing her real affections in her voice quite professionally, quite thoroughly. Very well done also on her side. Like if that was, you know, absolutely that's the intention. That of course results in a non-emotional delivery. I'm not saying the delivery is great in terms of how you get entangled with her or entertained or get like really interested in what she's saying, because her like her whole mission, it seems like, was way more controlling herself than actually making a great job, right? She believes that making a great job or doing a great job here was like concealing her emotions, which was her major concentration, instead of kind of energizing the sentences a little bit more. The guy on her left was a little bit pattern that it was looser, it was more active, it was a bit more, you know, emotionally entangled with it, and therefore it was more vivid. She was completely absent of any life.
In the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about...
Yes, Biden, Pat says, Biden has been told up and down that his cognitive ability is great. Jill Biden proves it after this debate. You did so good, Joe. Yes, there is something else that I want to show you in this context. I'm so glad you brought this up. I know this is quite at the end of everything, but I think this is really telling. Let me just remove this for a second, because I want to give you something here that is, it's quite interesting. Like I found this, I found this today, and I was really amazed what I saw here. Check it out. So this is on Twitter, and I mean, listen to this.
Actually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America, not billionaires in America.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart. He's on his game.
His mental acuity is great.
This is a very sharp president.
And the people that I've talked to say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine.
They say he's sharp.
There's not a problem.
He was sharp. He was sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
The president is sharp, and he is tireless.
He is sharp as ever.
And he's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
His brain is good. He's still great.
He is sharp in meetings.
I believe the people who say that behind closed doors, Joe Biden remains sharp.
In meetings, Joe Biden is sharp.
He's sharp. He's fit.
There is nothing to these challenges, these suggestions that somehow he's not sharp. He's sharp as a tack.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if.
Oh my God. And this is the problem, guys. This is really the problem that we have also as a country, but not just in this case, right? And again, this is not to denounce an old man, to denigrate or make fun of him. It's just to understand something fundamental. If you create an ambience where a lie becomes the truth, where you say something about a human being that is clearly not true, and you want everybody to correspond to that obvious lie, you create a cognitive dissonance with other people, right, and other people's brain, because they have to assess something that they don't believe in because their pattern recognition tells them otherwise, which is clearly the fact. So if we want to live in a country that is competitive, if we want to live in a country that is just, if we want to live in a country where we feel safe and can, you know, prosper and have all the abilities and all the opportunities like any good country should have, then we need to stop telling ourselves lies. And that starts, of course, with the media complex. You know, it is absolutely ludicrous to run over and over sentences that explain something that is clearly not true, and to still kind of request authority from the masses, because it's just simply ludicrous that you are, you know, showing something that is clearly the opposite of what is true, and then still wanting respect and authority from the people because you're clearly not making your job. And therefore, of course, people will quit believing in what you say. Now, what we create here is a dangerous double standard, because in a country that wants to be successful, we need to understand that the truth is always our imperative. It should always lead us. We should always understand that constructive criticism, the improvement of status quo, and the changing of certain narratives, and also the questioning of any sort of intervention from our government in terms of where it comes from, what it should be good for, and that should be a broader dialogue about all the measurements that we have to undergo. You know, cohesively as a population, we should be informed, and of course we have not only the right, we have also the privilege, but also the duty to understand what is happening to us and claim that duty and our right for ourselves. Only like that we can become self-sufficient organisms that can succeed in life, that have responsibility, authority, power, knowledge, and the will and the means of execution. Otherwise, we will always be, you know, kind of, you know, dependent on opinions and news that will be given to us by third and fourth parties that have their own personal agendas and other interests that are not our common interest. So if you have that type of this distance from what is real and what is truthful and effective and helpful from that what is being pronounced effective, truthful, and helpful, and then of course you will always have a clash of conflict. If that is not the intention of the system, to keep us in a loop of a constant eternal clash of conflicts, and therefore in an endless controversy, because by that they can control us better, right? If we're always fighting against each other, if we're always in a clash, if we're always kind of, you know, have a controversy about, if we're always destabilized by external factors, if there's always a new emergency coming up, there is no way to foster the common ground of common sense and pattern recognition to understand what works and what not, and be constructive and truthful about mistakes, lies, and the actual facts, right? Whether the one is right or the other one is right, I don't care. It's about what we saw there, that people are constantly kind of, you know, underlying a fact that is simply not true, because they are scared about their jobs, because this is, you know, the program, because this is now what's told, because all the executives have kind of, you know, agreed that this is a candidate everybody should run with and the other one shouldn't even be considered. This is not how democracy works. This is not how communication works. This is not how art should work. There should always be a discourse. There should always be a dialogue. It should always be a clash, of course. But then there should be also the resolution about understanding what's common sense, what's necessary, and what's effective. And staying in the camp of being a fan of someone will always blindside you or blindfold you to the real motivations, and also to, you know, to the things that are actually helpful and effective, right? Because you won't even see the good stuff that comes out of a camp that you deem not you know, because you're a fan. Now you're opposing that camp without any reason, just because you're a fan. When you get into that mentality, you will have eternal clash. We need to exit and look at stuff rationally. I feel like today, and like analyze it. What is working here? What is not working here? What are the symptoms? What are the strategies? Is this good or not? Can we run with this? And then we decide. Art is a collaboration. A government is a collaboration. A function in civilization, a population, a state, a nation is a fruitful, helpful, healthy collaboration. It can't work without collaborating. Blaming, accusing, pointing, and just kind of throwing dirt on each other won't resolve anything. There needs to be a compromise, a dialogue, dialogue and a conversation always. And just by saying he's a liar, you don't solve the problem, because even if he is, the problem still persists. So let's go to the root of things, right? Let's exterminate it once and for all. Let's be in here for the cause that life has given us, the privilege to live this and to change and to improve. And yes, and also to accept sometimes that you're wrong and that you've done some mistakes. In arts, we learn this all the time. An artist that doesn't acknowledge his mistakes, his failures, will never be a successful artist. We need to understand, hey, this doesn't work. For what reason? It's just not the state of art right now. It doesn't look good. It's not beautiful. It's not graceful. It doesn't convey any idea. It's not well executed. There are millions of reasons. If our leaders are not able to perceive and acknowledge that, how should we be able to do that? What type of example do we give? Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. And I feel very. It's an interesting feeling that I have in me. Of course, it's a horror cabinet in a way, but in the end, like I said also in Saturday Night Hypnosis, it gives us the opportunity to finally understand that we can't rely on anyone anymore except on us. Like our creativity, what we can create, the networks that we can establish, that we can solidify through our work. And through that, we can reinforce good things in this way more than just voting blue or red, elephant or donkey, left or right, passion or distraction, right? Fear or love. It's not that simple, right? There are many interwoven aspects in a thriving society. Sometimes these are phantom networks. They are invisible to the human eye. The unspoken law of a nation, of a city, of a district of a city, sometimes even just of a street. Like in Miami down here, we have many unspoken laws about where, what, when, what is the vibe, what is the commandement here, how the French say, like what is the direction here? And this is what life is good for. When you come together, yesterday we've been at a great wedding, Rusty Pelican, like people from all over the globe, and all we're happy. We are all Americans. We're all in this here together. We're all thriving to make something out of this life. And just denigrating mistakes and pointing the finger to someone else will never solve this. We have to come together, and everybody accept also the fact that, yeah, we're not perfect. You know, we won't have all the answers. Sometimes we'll fail. I think this wrong understanding of we're just good if we're perfect, that is absolutely ludicrous. That will lead us to doomsday operations, right? It's okay to be imperfect, acknowledge that, improve if you want, but don't blame anyone else, and don't be lazy about this life, because this time that has been given to you is a privilege. It's just not good to blame someone else. It's too short to drink bad coffee, to make bad love, to eat unhealthy food, and to not express fully what you're capable of. Therefore, thank you so much for showing up today. To all of you chat members, this has been, like I've predicted, the biggest show so far for Open Class Doodles. I'm truly proud of you coming out. Tomorrow I have 3 sages in a time machine. The Myth of Atlantis is running well. Check that show out before we dive in tomorrow's episode. I have another announcement to make on 3 sages and a time machine, because also there we're looking at the great scheme of things. There is a hidden narrative that is surfacing more and more, and probably you're realizing that. So if you're a fan of the show, definitely tune in tomorrow. We have exciting news and, of course, a brand new episode with a great doodle. And then Thursday, as always, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Saturday, you can catch me on Saturday Night Hypnosis. We have so much beautiful content coming up. New programs have been added also to my website, and we're expanding our horizon. I hope you're enjoying this ride, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Leave a like on the way out. Share this video to the ones that you leave, and see you next time with the next episode. And I believe now we definitely have learned something, and hopefully we're ready to perform. See ya.